I get those goosebumps every time you come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those comments, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time I need the Heimlich, throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around me, throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. 713 through the 281, yeah, I'm riding. Why they on me? Why they on me? I'm flying, sipping low key. I'm sipping low key and honest, find a rider. I get those goosebumps every time you come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those comments, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time I need the Heimlich, throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around me, throw that to the side, yeah.
Hey, has everybody got those goosebumps? Welcome back to another loaded mag NUFC, fully loaded transfer show, whatever you're having yourself. We're back. Apologies straight off. My headset died, my good headset, so I'm on the crappy one, so the voice might sound a slightly bit different. My mic, I might try that out during the week. We'll see how that goes. But how are you, lads? Chris, we'll go to you first. How are you?
Good, mate. Yeah, all good. It feels like it feels like a long time since we've done the show. So yeah, very excited and lots to talk about. So yeah, look, I'm all good, mate. I am all good.
Lots to talk about is right. Pete, I hope you're not going to show us your socks today, but how did you get fair in the bingo after that?
Yeah, got out of there very, very quickly after that. It was spinning plates, actually, that was going on afterwards. Yeah, it's spinning plates. I don't know what was going on, all kind of madness. But yeah, great week away with the family. But yeah, we're back to business, as always.
Back in business, that's for sure. And Richie, how are you?
Things are great, but I've come on here to cheer myself up. So there you go.
You came to the right place. You knocked on the right door. Let us entertain you. Someone famous said that, didn't he?
Does that mean I'm going to switch off and view it like the rest of like all the viewers in chat and stuff? Does it?
Yeah. No, keep pressing those buttons, Richie. Right, lads. We're here to talk about a lot of things. And you know what? Let's talk about a few outgoings first. Outgoings, and we have to start at the big one. We have to start at ASM. ASM it's been finally confirmed that ASM is gone. The king of football Twitter is gone from Newcastle. And yeah, there's an emotional message which everyone jumped on as well. A great, of course, he is and was massive fan favorite. He did split opinion as we've found out, and but 23 million is what Keith Downey saw reporting. Being on the low side, 23 million. We said ourselves we reluctantly let him go at 30 million, but 23 million. Chris, thoughts?
Well, I'll start first of all on ASM. Yeah, very sad. I must admit, when it actually got confirmed, I was actually quite sad. I did a little tweet to ASM, just to thank him for everything. And I know some of you boys did the same. And yeah, it is sad. I think it's the right decision, and if it means we move forward as a club, that's the main thing. And he goes with our best wishes. And as I say, it's a shame he's gone, but we move on. We move. In terms of the price, yeah, I'll admit I would be disappointed if it was just 23 million. A lot of sources are saying it's undisclosed. I know Keith Downey, good friend of the channel, said it was around the 23 million mark. I hope that's not correct. Maybe that means 23 million up front with add-ons, who knows? But yeah, I'd be a little bit disappointed if it was 23 million, especially given some of the prices of players moving out to Saudi recently. I think Al Hilal would have got themselves a bargain if it was just 23 million, but we'll have to see.
We'll have to see. Richie, I'm going to go to you next. I'm going to leave Pete to last because he's just to dry a few more tears. But Richie, Mr. ASM, God.
It is a sad day in a way, because obviously he was a fan's favourite, and on his day, as we've discussed numerous times, he was a phenomenal player. It was just a shame it wasn't consistent from him. So yeah, it was his message that he put out yesterday was nice, wholehearted, heartfelt as well. He was gutted. Obviously, he's leaving the Newcastle area. Obviously, I'm presuming his family might stay over here. Because obviously he mentioned it was home quite a few times, so it would take a lot to uproot a young family to Saudi Arabia on a permanent basis, because obviously you don't know how well the Saudi league's going to keep going over. He might go over there for himself for a year, you don't know, and then see what happens, and then move them over afterwards. But it was interestingly said that Newcastle was still home and he'd be back again. So you imagine he's going to be quite a few times. If he's got 3 weekends, he might come over to take a game in or something like that. But obviously the area and the club and the fans have left a mark on, which was nice to see. And it's just, as I said at the start, it's just a shame we just didn't see a bit more consistency from him, because he might still be wearing a black and white. And I think the one thing that's a little bit disappointing for me was we never got to see him in the Champions League. That's the one thing. I do think it would. That's probably one of the stages where you would have seen him excel possibly even more. But as we touched on a few times, we had very, very few sellable assets, and unfortunately, he was one of them. We discussed this numerous times during the few squad games that we've done. It could have been Miggy if Miggy hadn't had the season he had last season. But obviously, unfortunately, Maxi was the make weight to help with that dreaded FFP word and bringing, future signings coming in, all that sort of stuff. And if it's 23 million, I hope that's just the upfront payment, and there's a few more add-ons that to take it close to the 30 million mark and stuff. But he'll be a miss. But it's a project moving forward. We've got Harvey Barnes as a replacement, and as we've talked about numerous times over the last few weeks, his stats in the Premier League over the last few years have, they've kicked Maxis into the stand, basically. So it's if he starts to keep doing what he's been doing for Leicester, did for Newcastle, I don't think ASM will be missed on the pitch too much.
I know one man that's going to miss them. Dry your eyes, mate. Pete. ASM. That's it. It's the last time we're ever going to have to show this picture, Pete. Say goodbye to this picture. It's gone.
We don't need it anymore. We don't need it anymore. He's already gone. But now, I think for me, it was about the way in which he left. We've already discussed what he's done for the club and all the rest of it in terms of on the pitch, and people have had their say, whichever side of the fence you sit on. But it was, for me, it was the way in which he left the club. And I think, the video that the club put out today and the effort that they've gone to really show Maxi how much he meant to the club says everything about the type of person that he is and what he's done in our time here. People can argue about what he's done on the pitch, but as a person, as an individual, what he's done for the community of Newcastle, what he's done for young children, what he's done for the players and staff around him, he's gone with the utmost respect, and I actually think he's handled it very well as well. It was very, very clear that we needed to sell him, and we had to, because he was the one that had the biggest sell-on value of everyone that we could potentially get rid of, and I think he's handled it really well. I think he's been very, very gracious and very, very loving to the club, and the club have reciprocated that, and fair play to them. So that was the key for me, is how he left the club, and he's left the club as an absolute fan favourite. And if anybody ever questioned whether ASM was divided, I think you'll find the responses that he's been getting on the back of him leaving shows that he isn't divided. There is far more people that loved ASM, and he is far more fan favourite than the small minority that felt that he wasn't. And fair play to him. But as what's been said, we need to get used to this as a club, because we are going to be losing players that we don't necessarily want to lose. And we are going to be losing players that are good people and had good times at the club. You go down the club of players, Henry Sarve, for example, Johan Gouffran and Riviere, and all those players that we've been desperate to leave. Get out the club. You've done nothing for us. This is very different for us because we're feeling something different because we've got an attachment to this player and this player's made a difference. We need to get used to that because this won't be the last time that an ASM type selling is going to happen in order for the club to move forward. Me and Chris talked about it before. We talked about, a Miggy next season potentially, or a Callum Wilson could well be the case. And they'll go with exactly the same love and affection that ASM's gone today. Good luck to him. I'm sure he'll smash it up, and I'm sure he'll be back very, very soon in Europe, tearing it up at another club in a couple of years' time. So, best wishes.
Exactly, Pete. I don't think Chrissy Kenwright has given up on Wilson yet this season, though. You never know. You never know what might happen. But don't put away those tissues yet, lads, because there's another one gone. Darlow. Darlow's gone to Leeds. Again, for a low fee, it was at 0.4 million. But I think there's good reason behind that. He was in good wages at Newcastle. And we don't need the amount of goalies we have. We need to mix it up. We probably look at bringing in a younger keeper in time as well. Maybe probably not this season, but maybe next summer. But yeah, Darlow is gone. He's been with us, I think it was for 9 years or so. He's with us. But Chris, I'll go back to you. Your thoughts on Darlow gone?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was as surprised as everyone else, when we were all thinking anywhere between 4, 5, 6 million, something like that. And then it was like, so it was 400 grand. And I think everyone was a bit like, wow, 400 grand. But it's got, I mean, anyone who's on Twitter will have seen my tweet a few hours ago when I said, for me, that means that, a large chunk of that transfer fee will have gone towards paying off Darlow's contract. It's got to have been. Because you don't sell someone of Darlow's quality for 400 grand. It's as simple as that. And I'm pretty sure he had 3 or 4 years left on his deal. So I know we wanted rid of Darlow, and I know we wanted to free up the wage bill, etc. But he's worth considerably more than 400 grand. But it kind of shows the position we're in. We've got a lot of players at our club at the moment. I could probably name 6, 7, 8 players who we need to move on, but unfortunately they're on very favourable contracts with decent wages, and the clubs who would be interested in them, whether that be top, middle, or bottom end of the championship, they're not going to pay the same wages that they're on now. So obviously the players, understandably, are turning around and going, well, I could stay here for another year or two, just sitting in around the squad. If you want me to leave, that's fine, but you're going to have to, compensate me or reimburse me for the wages that I would have got, because I'm going to take considerably less wages at this new club. And that's a problem that we're going to have over the next few years. And we've spoken about it previously, boys, that, we don't have much wiggle room at the moment. And when we bring players in, we've got to bring in the right players, and they've got to hit the ground running. We can't buy any duds, because I think over the years, what we've done is, particularly Mike Ashley, is kind of paper over the cracks, and rather than buy a better quality of goalie or a better quality right back or a better quality centre midfielder, he's just thought, well, tell you what I'll do, I'll just give them a better contract and get them to stay, and then eventually we can sell them on. But the problem is we've now got a bunch of players who, under the old regime, probably would have been fine. They probably would have done enough to be able to kind of keep us in the league or strive for mid-table. But they're not going to be able to sort us out in terms of pushing that top 6, top 4. And that is the problem that we're going to have, I'd say, probably over the next 2 or 3 seasons, either waiting for the contracts to expire or potentially just giving them away. And like I say, we've got 5, 6, 7, 8 players who are in that position. Thankfully, Carl Darlow's gone. Big thanks to him. I think he's a good, solid professional. Unfortunately, I just don't think he's a top 6 goalkeeper, and that's why he's gone to Leeds. But Leeds, fantastic club, and I think he'll do really well there. And Leeds have got themselves a good goalkeeper.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris. And yeah, as I think I said it on the show the other night, the time Dubravka was injured, he came in and he did a really, really solid job for us at the time. There was the talk of whether Dubravka could get back in at that stage. But just a reminder as well to smash that like button. I'm going to go easy on a Sunday night. 350 likes, I think, is the target for tonight. You can blow it out of the order, of course, but please do. And then if you're new, hit that subscribe button as well. Also, remind me later. Yeah, there it is. The trusty message. Now, please, someone put me back another one because I want to bring up a picture. Yeah, I'll do it. We're back. We're back on the other one. Yes. Where was I going here? Yes. So,
We're
Chris,
still
I
going.
could have. It's still going. Yeah. To make it easier, Chris, I could have shown you this one. This is one of your old pictures, Pete, of all the wages that you were alluding to on that. Pretty much the deadwood that we wanted to try and offload from the team. And look, if these wages are accurate, there's a hell of a lot of wiggle room there. That if we can offload them, we can make up. Put a bit back in the kitty, I guess. But Pete, I'm going to go to you next and ask you about Darlow, because I know you're deeply upset about Darlow leaving. But and also throw in the wages, because we are going to go to Richie. A heads up, I'm going to go to you about Jamal Lewis. But yeah, what's your thoughts on Darlow leaving?
Oh, where's Chris gone?
I don't know. He's gone off to talk to Everton. I betcha. He's got wind of it now. He saw those wages. We can do something here. But yeah, I'm sure he'll pop back on in a second.
Cole Darlow. Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad that he's not with us anymore. Obviously, he was a great servant for the club. He's back. I didn't know where he went. Great servant for the club. 9 years, as you say, Daz, you're absolutely right. And certainly in the championship season, he was very, very good for us. Fair play to him. But for me, we needed to move him on. I think Chris, you're right. I think he had about 3 years left on his deal, which on what 40-odd grand a week is a lot of money. And there's no championship club, that would pay that without us having to supplement somewhere. And I think that's what it is. We've supplemented by the transfer fee. Exactly what you said, Chris. I think you're absolutely right. In order to ensure that we didn't have a Dwight Gale situation where we gave him away free to Stoke and continued to pay his wages for another couple of years in order to supplement moving him on. I think the reason why it's such a low fee is because we then don't have to pay anything for him, and he's just gone from the club, and we don't have to keep paying any wages. So I think and hope that that's the case. But yeah, spoke to Joe about Darlow from a Leeds perspective, and he's really happy to have him at the club. He was desperate to get him in, albeit 2 or 3 weeks ago when they were heavily linked, and he was confident then that they'd get him, even with Bournemouth involved. The question I have, and it's not Newcastle related, is what's happening with Meslier. Meslier is their first choice goalkeeper, and a young goalkeeper at that. So does that suggest that Meslier is going to be part of a goalkeeper movement? We've seen that Arsenal are linked with David Raya today to bring him in as number one, which has massive question marks about Ramsdale and his future. Is Meslier going to be part of that merry-go-round and that he ends up at Brentford or somewhere else as part of that movement? Really, really interesting to see how that unfolds for Leeds. But yeah, I'm glad that Darlow's gone to a team that should hopefully be fighting at the top end of the championship. And equally, I'm glad that we've got the wages off the bill, because he wouldn't have been playing any minutes this season. I think it's 40 grand a week for someone that's not kicking the ball is not what this club is being built on right now.
Yeah, slight tangent there, people. I thought I heard Bayern Munich were looking at that keeper as well.
Yeah,
Meslier.
Yeah. No, from
Raya.
Raya from Brentford.
Raya, yeah.
Along with Harry Kane, of course.
He didn't. Raya didn't play for Brentford either in the summer series.
Okay. Richie, and I'll loop back to the lads as well that have to say on Jamal Lewis. But Richie, I'll give you Darlow and Lewis, because Lewis is gone to Watford now on loan with the option to buy. So yeah, take your pick of who you want to talk about.
Well, no, I'll talk about Jamal Lewis because obviously you'd mentioned it beforehand. But I think the one thing that surprised me is I don't think it's the fact that he's been shit at Newcastle. I just think he's been very, very unlucky. As we stated when he came in, it's Jurgen Klopp was after him at Liverpool, and obviously they put a bid in for him, and then for some reason, which is bizarre during the Mike Ashley era, we actually outbid Liverpool for Jamal Lewis by $1 million or something for him, and then obviously you bring him in. So there's obviously a player in there, and when he was playing week in week out at Norwich, he did really well. But as I said, he had loads of injuries, and he's been really unlucky. He came back in, and then obviously he got injured. When Eddie Howe was pretty much new. I think it was against Liverpool. He did all right, then got injured and stuff. But it's one of those things. At the end of the day, when you've got your chance, you've got to try and take your chance, and he hasn't done that. And unfortunately, obviously, we had to bring Matt Target in, and obviously Dan Burns come in, primarily as a centre back, who's been playing left back and played pretty much there all season. Did a fantastic job there. They've tried playing him a bit further forward. I think is that something which was being quite a clever move by Newcastle to show that he's versatile, so he can't just play full back. He can play, wing back for, even left wing sort of thing. And then it's telling that that Watford, where he's gone, have let João Pedro go, and they've also left Ismail Sarr go, two wing players. So that's, it could be one of those where he's going to play further forward for them, or they're going to change sorts. But look, he's not one of those where I'm like, I'm glad to get rid of him. I thought he could have made it Newcastle. I thought he was a good player, but obviously it's one of those things, and you've got to move on now. And perhaps he just needs to play football on a week-to-week basis, and playing for Watford in a pretty stocked up championship will probably do them the world of good. And hopefully, he can reboot his career, and you never know where it goes. See what happens.
Cool. Cheers, Richie. I do agree with what you're saying there. That I think he needs game time, and just to get back to somewhere where he was before, and it would better for. But I believe we've something in the chat. Do we have a super chat?
Super chat received.
Who have to play it twice?
Super chat received.
Right. What's happening?
Go for it. Hold on. Well, first off, there's one from Colin. Colin Nicol, thank you for your £10.
Thank you, Colin.
Cheers, Colin.
Put a question in there, Colin. I think that's not the first time you've done that. You just put the money in, which we massively appreciate you supporting the channel. But put a question in, we'll answer it. So put your question in, and we'll come back to that question in just a second. But the second super chat, friend of the channel, and has put a question in, is Rich Dublin. Thank you very much for your $4.99 super chat. Question is kind of a question. Know that it's had a lot of debate. Your thoughts on memberships, fairer ticketing, more revenue, no difference from general sale.
Ooh. Can I start there? Because this guy, I love this guy. He is the bane of a lot of people's lives. When that little ticker goes, what place you land in the queue, and now of course you didn't have to get your membership on it. When everyone joined in, the fun it is of seeing what number you're in the queue and how long it's going to take you. And it took me. People saying it took them 5 hours. It took me 10 minutes. Or you can click again and you bypass the queue and you can go straight in and get the membership anyway. And then international membership, standard membership, you can click whichever you want either. Does it really matter? I don't know. But this guy, a membership. So back to Rich's question. So is it fair? I guess is Rich's question about the ballot system. I think overall it is fair. It depends on what the odds are, I suppose. And if you I guess people will find out through the year if you've applied for a number of games and you miss out on all them. People will have something to say about it then. But overall, it probably gives a fairer system for inclusion for everybody. And I think everyone deserves the right to go to a game, even people that have never been to a game. So, so I think it will be a fair system, but just how it will be in operation. And the thing that I've been thinking about it, okay, because you have to you put in your details. I think when you pay, when you are putting yourself into the ballot for a ticket. But then let's say you get a ticket and it's not in the area that you wanted to be in. Let's say it's level 7 and you're traveling a long way to go to a match. So you want to have the best view possible. How easy is it to offload that ticket again and to hand it back? That's the question I have. I guess more details will become clear in time, but that's just my thoughts on the topic. But and that's when I jump in there.
I don't know. It is an interesting one, and it's how I think the other thing is the fact that the international ones are so different as well. And even that, season ticket holders, if they might have to have them as well, especially if they want all the discount that's not included as part of the season ticket as well. So I think when we were talking the other day, I think what we're going off Twitter for, I'd say, I think we'd sold something like 85,000 memberships. So it's, if that's that, I presume there's going to be some season ticket holders in that as well, because I know you get 25% off your drinks at Shearer's, I think, as part of the membership. So there's a lot of people who go there match days, so you'll get cheaper drinks on match days and stuff like that. So, and obviously people drink not just on match days as well. So it's, I'd love to think it's 85,000 members, because obviously it's more money into the coffers of the club. But I think there's going to be quite a few season tickets in there as well. But to get into the ballot, I think that the only fair thing about it is that if you look at the queue systems and that little man that you had up before, Daz, it's everyone's sick to the death of seeing him every single time you try and go for a home ticket. At least you know that if you're going to be going in, you're going to be getting a ticket for that game. But to be fair, there's also people who are members who don't actually want to go to the game and try to sell them on to the people who can't get tickets, touts and stuff, unfortunately. And the good thing is now that obviously a lot of stuff's going to be electrical. I'm not too sure if I know the season tickets are now electrical, but I'm not too sure about the membership tickets. Will they still be posted out? Might cut down on ticket touts, and because we see a lot of the people, getting closer to match days, selling tickets for games and stuff like that. And one of our bugbears is that people not selling the face value and stuff like that. So you hope that gets cut out by stuff like this, and it's only the genuine fans that want to, that get the tickets on the day. But I think the only thing is it's going to be good for the people who, certain games you want to be able to go to. Like Daz, say for example, it's going to make it harder for you to get over now, because obviously we could all plan up a meet between the four of us. Mark probably want to get involved again and meet up with some of the people and chat as well. But it's then we might not be able to all get the same ballot or something like that, and it's it's harder on that sort of thing as well. So there's going to be a lot of teething problems as well. But I think it's always going to get obviously Lisa's saying they automatically get the season ticket automatically get memberships, but it said it wasn't made clear until after it was obviously went on sale. So how many season ticket holders have bought memberships then as well? That's something that's going to have to come back to. Obviously, that might be something that Pete and Lisa have to deal with the trust. They might have to question the club on that, whether people could get refunds if they've bought memberships on top of that as well. So there's a lot of teething problems. And as I was just about to say before I went back to that comment from Lisa, is we're always going to have this until St James's Park. The capacity gets increased. It's always going to be the case. Even like I don't know. We're going to have this now going forward. We're a club in demand. Everyone wants tickets now. It's not like the Mike Ashley era either, which where you could get a season ticket whenever you want, and you could buy a ticket for the game. And it's not anymore. They're like gold dust now. It's going to be like that until the capacity gets increased, which is probably going to be realistically 5 to 10 years before we're going to see a vast improvement on that front.
Still on the serious topic, but anyone, I'm going to give this guy getting a name. I'm going to give him the name Jed. And Chris, Jed is a pain in the. You're on mute, Chris.
Sorry. I said arse, but I don't know whether that's where you were going with that.
No, I was going to rhyme pain in the head, but no, you're right. Pain in the hole is what Jed is.
Oh, that's okay,
yeah. But Pete, we'll get your thoughts on the whole. Are you sick of hearing about this?
No, not sick of hearing about it, but we hear a lot about it at the trust. We get a lot of emails day in, day out with regards to questions, with regards to this. So it's nothing really new to us. Lisa's put a couple of bits in the chat. And one thing I'll say is that we're collating everything, and it's things that we want to seriously discuss with the club. The one point I'll make is that this is going to be the issue now with Newcastle. As we continue to build forward, and it doesn't matter if we extend our capacity, we're still going to get a huge demand. As Richie said, first day of memberships 80,000.
85,000, I think I saw. Yeah,
yeah, I think I was 80,000 first day, and I think there's 85,000 since. For me, like we're never going to get a capacity stadium like that unless we build a brand new stadium. So already, and that's just memberships. So the demand for tickets is always going to be huge for Newcastle moving forward. We've not even considered in this conversation commercial. Every big club has a commercial section that get tickets for matches, and we've not even considered that. They are 80,000 memberships for fans that are passionate and support this club and love this club. Then you've got a section of commercial. Then you've got season tickets to add in there. Yes, they might cross over with memberships and not, but that's crazy numbers. Man City have never had anything like that ever. So we need to get used to it. It's going to be very, very difficult to get tickets moving forward. It will be. And the one thing I'll say is no matter what the club decide or have decided already, there are always going to be sections of the fan base that are not going to be happy. Now, for me, and it's one thing I said when I put myself forward for the trust, is that my stance when I'm part of the board is not about me. It's about the wider fan base. And the decisions that I want the club to make is not for the benefit of me. I'm not a season ticket holder, so a lot of these discussions don't benefit me with regards to season tickets because I don't have a season ticket. But what I want it to do is benefit the wider fan base of this club. Now, if that turns out to be season ticket holders, great. But if it turns out to be international fans, if it turns out to be a wider section, if it's focused on young children and getting them into the club and seeing matches and being a part of the fabric of the club moving forward, then great. That's what I'm about. It's not about personal interest, and it shouldn't be. And for me, they're some of the things that I think I want to be raising and fighting for, and that's something that we'll take forward. But can't really say too much more than that. There's a plan in place. We do meet and have regular meetings and discussions, and they'll be ongoing, and there'll be lots more to come. And look, if we think this is just going to get to a point where we have this magical miracle answer that answers every question, then we're lying to ourselves, because this conversation will continue on for years and years to come, because there will be some sections of the fan base that just won't be happy with whatever's decided, and we have to get used to that. We can't make every single section of the fan base and every single opinion work, because that's just not how it is. But we want to make sure that the club are aware from a fan perspective, and that we thank all the fans that have been in touch with us at the board, and we continue to ask them to do so. We hope that they continue to do that so we can get their message across, because as a trust board member, we're representatives of the fans. We're fans ourselves, and we're representatives of the rest of you.
I'm going to go to Chris next to see if you want to say out on this topic, Chris. But I want to put a hypothetical situation as well, because I ruled out getting anywhere near the Champions League matches, right? But now as a member, I was a member last year as well, but as a member, as this ballot option, is there a chance that I could get to a Champions League game? Are you telling me there's a chance with this raffle? I can put my name into every raffle, but is there a chance I can get to a Champions League game? Chris, tell me.
Me, I think you've got as good a chance as anybody else, mate. That's the way I'd look at it. But I mean, I could probably talk for the next half hour about it, and obviously I'm not going to, because Pete's absolutely right. This is something that will rumble on, not just now, but for years to come. I think the biggest takeaway I have from what Pete's just said then, given that Pete is on the board, is the fact that the club will do their very best, and for me, it's about trying to understand that certain decisions will be made to benefit the majority, benefit the overall. There'll be sections of the fan base who feel like they've been left out. I've seen in the past 48 hours, the different varying, scenarios that I've seen, or feelings or thoughts, are so vast. Like, it's physically impossible to please everybody. The one thing I will say, and I back Pete in what he said, is that, decisions will be made, and as long as they're made for the good of the club and the good of the majority of the fan base, and that fan base stretches as far and wide as you can imagine, then for me, that's the only thing they can do. Obviously, from a selfish perspective, there'll be certain things I want them to do, or certain things that I think they should do, thinking about myself. But then, I do see it on the side of season ticket holders. I do see it on the side of people who are within close proximity to St. James's. I do see it on the side of people who are season ticket holders, but not necessarily near St. James's. And then there's people who, are nowhere near St. James's, but, they're far and wide, and they've now become a member. There's all these different angles and all these different views, and it is literally the impossible. It's the impossible scenario. I was actually laughing to myself last night going, I can't actually think of another scenario that is so, it's so wide. Like, because literally there's all different opinions, and nobody's right and nobody's wrong, in my opinion. I know a lot of people would think that's wrong, and a lot of people would disagree with that, and they'll obviously feel very strongly about their own, their own ambitions or their own opinions. But for me, I just think we've got to try and just accept whatever decisions are made, and try and see that it's for the good of the fan base as a whole, rather than any particular sections. But it's just one of those topics that, we, as I say, we could talk about this for hours, and we'd never get to the point of this is how they should do it, because ultimately there's a lot of demands, and there's not enough seats, and that's just the way it is. And there's going to be some people upset. There's going to be some people who miss out, but ultimately, we are where we are, and hopefully the club come up with a plan. Hopefully the club come up with a new direction, or something that was the best fit or the best case scenario. But ultimately, I think this will rumble on and on and on.
Yeah. It's really interesting, just to add on this before we move on. There's a couple, 2 or 3 in the chat that have talked about, let's build a new stadium, or let's expand here or in there. 1 or 2 have mentioned about let's stop building on Leisure Park. With all this situation with tickets, are people now in a position where they would want a brand new stadium that can be a 75, 80,000 capacity to appease a lot of the fan base that are currently missing out? And this is my loaded hat on now. This is not the trust is aside for a second. It'd be interesting to see, not just here, maybe we can get a poll up, I don't know, but whether people would now consider a new stadium because of the issues that a lot of people are having with tickets. Some people might have the same opinion, but it'd be interesting to find out from that perspective if people's minds have changed slightly.
Yeah, and just taking that point, I think even Terry and Eels in the summer series was again pointing out that we're not moving anywhere away from St. James's Park. So I don't think, but people may want to consider it now, but I still don't think that's going to happen. They will expand St. James's Park and in time, but again, that's going to take time because we know something else is coming, and we're going to get onto that topic soon as well. Also coming up on the show, there's a potential for someone to join us as well, so stay tuned for that. We like surprises along the way, but I want. Let's move away from
just before we go, because it might be it's actually related to the ticket sort of thing for memberships, and obviously it's one per person. And Rich Jobbins put a good question in here, so Lisa might know, or Pete might know, and it's just saying he's directed to Lisa, but I'll just bring it up. It says obviously as a family of 4 with 2 linked children accounts, theoretically could just 2 of us or 1 of us end up being successful? So obviously you normally go, it's like, obviously, yeah, how's it going to be? Would, say, for example, for myself and Chris, obviously, Pete, you've got your daughter as well, say, for example, would you just have to put the ballot for just yourself, or would it have to be for all of you? Or what happens if, because obviously, Pete, you'd be gutted if say, for example, your daughter got a ticket, but you didn't get it back, except for the
You're
ballot.
dressing up.
You know what
I'm grading. I'm joking.
I think it's quite a relevant question, actually, that Rich brings up there. Do you know what I mean? Surely that if, say, for example, the child gets the ballot one drawn, the adult should automatically get it because technically the child can't really go without the parent. It's
well, this is why the trust put something out, and to be fair, the club reacted on it quite quickly because we put something out, and then literally 24 hours later, the membership information came out. And this is why we did what we did, is because we've had a whole summer to get these things nailed down, ready for the new season. The new season is only 2 weeks away, and these are questions that should have already been answered, in my opinion. I'm talking as an individual here. What I would expect it to be is that it'd be grouped, particularly with families with young children. It wouldn't make sense what you've just said, is that my daughter gets a ticket or your son gets a ticket, but you don't. It should be grouped in that, and that you either all get a ticket or you don't, or none of you get one. That would be an easy solution to that. Some may not think that that's fair, but for me, that's a fair way of doing it. That would be the easy answer. But again, these are questions, certainly from my point of view. Please, someone in the chat or Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, that those things haven't been confirmed yet. And with the Seller Cup coming up next weekend, with Villa coming up first game of the season, these are things that should have already been nailed.
Oh, Lisa's put this in the chat. You all need to be linked, and then you can enter as a group.
Okay, so me and my daughter renewed our membership, but we're linked. So that's basically what I was saying. Is that makes sense? Is that when we go into a ballot, we go in together and we're linked. So if I'm successful, that should mean that she's successful as well. That's what I'm assuming.
I wonder.
Oh, sorry, Daz, you might be going to ask what I'm going to ask. I was just going to say.
I was going to.
On,
let's say only one of you wanted to go to the match and you got 2 tickets. Does that mean that Chris could potentially dress up and pretend he's your daughter, repeat, to go to the match?
It's not a problem. I'll do it.
Does that mean that Pete's Blaze and he's Brandy then?
Like that as we go in. Come on.
Imagine that. I imagine. I think there is an option, or there used to be an option, where you could just upgrade your ticket to an adult ticket. So you still get in, but you can just upgrade it to an adult ticket on the day. So you just pay the difference. Whether that's the thing now, I don't know, but that could potentially be that could potentially be it. I'm not sure.
My question was going to be, I mean, obviously, and we're probably getting too much into it here, but say, for example, you've got 10,000 people who are all linked. So, like, in effect, you've got 30,000 people because they've all got extra tickets as well as their own. Does that mean, do you think the grouped people have got a better chance of getting a ticket or the lesser chance of getting a ticket? Because they can't, say, for example, they sell out the whole allocation. And then when they actually look into all the numbers, they go, oh, Pete Davies got a linked account. That means he's got an extra ticket. Oh, Rich Story's got a linked account. That means he's got an extra ticket. And then they're then in a position where they go, well, we can't give out all these tickets because, we can't give out all these tickets because they've all been given to linked accounts. Do you see what I mean?
The only way I think they can do it, Chris, was I imagine, say, for example, if you've got 4 people in there, as soon, and obviously they work the way down, I imagine it'd be like, they'll probably just have a much better version of our members wheel, and they'll just go through it. And as soon as
no way.
Come on. Hey.
No, I'm just using it.
No, enough of that. There's nothing better than that wheel. I'm not having that now.
He's still going as well. He didn't even know you chucked him out, and he was still talking away.
The computer's that crap at the minute, man. I didn't even know I was still talking away and I'm not there. Do you remember? No, I think what I mean is obviously there'll be like some sort of like supercomputer going on where it'll just pick a membership number out, and as soon as that goes, so if they know there's 10,000 tickets available, it'll automatically allocate 4, and then it'll obviously just go down until all that 10,000 technical allocation is gone. Then if it's not taken on the ballot, I imagine then they'll be put back either for reissuing a ballot for members or there'll be an increased general sale. That's how I would imagine they'll do it. But
if your number, say if your group of 4, as Lisa just said in the chat, if your group of 4 is say number 98, for example, and 98 comes out in the ballot, that means that you as a group of 4 get those tickets. That's how I'm assuming it, and I think that's what Rich is alluding to as well, and that's what I would expect to happen in that situation. Is you come as a group. So if you come as a group and you get the tickets, that means that 4 tickets have been allocated to you as that one number within the ballot. Lots of other clubs do this. Lots of other clubs do it for away games. And that's not even a discussion that we've had. We're talking about ballots for home games right now. Lots of clubs do this for away games, and I know a lot of fans, particularly some in the chat, might not be necessarily happy with this, but with that conversation. But actually, lots of top clubs have been doing that for years. It is putting their away tickets in a ballot, so everyone gets an opportunity to experience an away game. And if they can't go to the game for whatever reason, their ticket goes back in, and then it gets offered to someone else. I know a couple of mates, whether it's at Chelsea, whether it's at Man U, that have been to away games and been in that ballot and been successful sometimes, that haven't been successful sometimes, and then the tickets come back and they've been contacted to say ticket's been returned. Do you want it? And that's something that it could well likely happen with our home game situation. And it's the problem is that we're class and we're quality. We're a quality footballing team, and we're only going one direction, and it's going up. And with that comes these type of problems. I think if we gave the option to the fan base of going back to 3 years, 4 years ago, where anybody could get a ticket for home or away, and watching that the type of football we're watching there, or having to fight, scratch and claw for a ticket, but knowing that you're watching quality players and that you're going to be entertained and such, I think we'd take what we've got right now. And that's although it's frustrating and upsetting for some that are missing out, it's for me, it's the reality.
Chris would pass as a 9-year-old. But and just to correct you, Pete, we're not just class. If Charlotte and Alex are watching, and we're fucking class. Let's move on. And thanks, Rich Joblin, for derailing the show with your super chat question. We only spent half an hour on that, but no, a valid point, and we were going to get onto membership tonight as well. But let's kind of stick with transfer topics for the second, and let's tell you who is not coming to Newcastle. Right, this man isn't, because Axel Dazizi, he is going to Chelsea, I believe.
Yes.
So yeah, cross him off your list. I guess there was kind of we were saying before, it's kind of agent talk, maybe linking us into the mix there. I don't think it was anything serious. We kind of did rule it out. But any thoughts on this one, lads, as he moves to Chelsea?
For me, it's a Chelsea panic buy. I don't particularly think Chelsea want him, but with Fofana being out for the season, I think they had to make a move. You boys know, I spoke to you boys separately in our chat. I've never really been convinced about Axel Disasi being a Newcastle target. Lots of local journalists have said, including the likes of Sky Sports and Keith Downey, that it's more at times it's been more agent driven. That the agent's trying to get him out of Monaco, and he's trying to drum up interest. And of course, the easy option of that is Newcastle, because we're linked with everybody. I've never been convinced that we're genuinely interested in him. I'm not being funny. There are better players out there that we can sign. And 38 million? I can tell you there's a list of players that are better than him that we could go out and get for cheaper, in my opinion. So I'm not too bothered about this one. I'm really not. But you know what? And I don't know what you boys think. I'm really excited to see who it is that we are going to get.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the surprises. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's no links. He was the main one, really. I don't know what you boys think about that.
No, I think. Do you know what? This is probably the one transfer this window where, when it came through that he was going to Chelsea, I was just like, okay, it's fine. Whereas, the others, we've seen Diaby, and numerous other players, and we're all a bit like, oh, why aren't we going for him? And why have we let him slip through our hands kind of thing? But Dizazi, I don't know what it was. It never felt, to me, it never felt like we were really in for him. I know, obviously, we were linked to them and stuff like that, and through various media reports, but I don't know why. I just didn't really believe it. Maybe it was because Pete and his brother Lee were so adamant that there's better quality out there, and I think if they're not top level players, I don't believe that we would be in for them anyway. And I know there was links with Man United as well, and then Chelsea have just swooped in. So no, I wasn't particularly bothered by that. But do you know what I wanted to ask, just on the back of what we were discussing? Did anyone else find it interesting? The way that Eddie's demeanour kind of changed after I think it was after the Brighton game, wasn't it, when he was asked about transfers, and he was like, "Yeah, nobody else is leaving. Nobody else has to go, but we're still in the market for players." And that's kind of the first time, to my knowledge anyway, in the past few weeks, that he's kind of admitted that we're actively looking to bring players in. We all know that we are, don't get me wrong, but what I mean is, like, it seemed like his stance on it changed. And I don't know if you boys agreed on that, but I saw that and thought, oh.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris. It was like Eddie said, it's my round now, and he's gone up to the bar, and we're going, what's he going to come back with? What's he going to surprise us? He's going to bring down a tray or something, and we're going to have to knock it back here. So what have you got for us, Eddie?
Yeah.
Hopefully a few more of these boys.
Yeah,
as long as it's not weird Hennessy, Pete, that's all right.
Oh my God. Don't ruin Hennessy for me, Richie. For God's sake. It's one of my favourite drinks.
Okay, I'm going to move on from the guy going to Chelsea. I'm going to go to what I'm more disappointed about. It's Mateus Franca. Mateus Franca is not coming to us now either, because he's going off all places. But I know there's kind of some link in with the owners. Palace.
Do you know what? The interesting thing for me here is, didn't we bid 20 million euros in January and they turned us down? That's the interesting thing. And I think Newcastle just turned around and went, nah, fuck this. Like, we're not going to be pissed about whether we would be prepared to add 10 million add-ons, and that's what sealed the deal. I don't know, because I know there was a lot of rumours saying 25 would possibly, Newcastle might go up to that with included add-ons. All I can think is it's the 10 million add-on that's got the deal done, because 20 million is exactly what we offered him in January. So if he wants to go to Palace and I don't know, because I ain't liking Palace's chances this year. I really not.
No.
But perhaps he's going to use it as a stepping stone to get a better move next summer when Palace get relegated.
Richie, that's exactly what it is in my eyes. The better move is to go to Newcastle. You've got established Brazilians there. You've got a pathway to the first team, and you're playing European football potentially by joining us. There's a few key reasons in my mind when I see this deal go through. One, it smacks of desperation from Palace for the reasons you've just said, Richie, is that they do not look good this season, and they don't look like they're ready to tackle a Premier League season. I think they could potentially really struggle, especially with your two centre-backs also being linked with moves as well, in Mark Gay and Joachim Andersen. But to add to that, I think and people won't like this, but I genuinely think this is a reason with him. I think the pull of London is a big thing, and the reason being is two other young Brazilians who he knows quite well have also moved to London recently, and the two players that have moved to Chelsea. And I think keeping alongside them and being based in London, not too far away, I think is another reason for that too. For me, it's 100% a stepping stone. If he has a great season, plays every minute for them, does well for them, there's no doubt that another team will be in for him. But I think this is a well-played move by Newcastle. I think it's a really important window for us this summer, is that we're not being messed around by teams and we're not going to overpay for anybody. And we knew this was going to be the case for 2 or 3 years. But very, very quickly, a lot of these top-end players or these teams that are throwing big money at us are very, very quickly realizing that we're not going to overpay for players, and we're just going to walk away and go in a different direction. And I think that's really, really good for us in the years to come forward. That's, Man United haven't been able to do that. Arsenal haven't been able to do that. Chelsea, they all overpay for players. And the reason being is because they're just so desperate to get them that they'll just give a team whatever they want. Newcastle not prepared to do that. We have handled ourselves as a club so well. I'm so impressed with this. So it was a really important point that you made about not overpaying and walking away after we bid 20 million from beforehand.
Cool. Right, Pete, there was one or two more I think you stuck in the chat. Sorry, on the screen as well. Is there one? Did you want to go bring up one or two more?
This was one I was going to throw out. It's not an opinion that I have, or I have an opinion. Well, I've got an opinion either way, but I wanted to throw this out to you boys and everyone in the chat. And it's not Newcastle related, but I want to try and make it Newcastle related. And it's this one.
Saw that.
For Richard Romano said, understand Fulham have made a verbal proposal for Callum Hudson-Odoi for around 4 million. Chelsea want 8 million, negotiations are advanced, blah, 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 all the rest of it. Now, we've talked about Callum Hudson-Odoi before. And it was just a quick talking point that I just thought, why not throw it in there and have a discussion on it? He's a right attacking forward. He's young. I think he's like 23. Is he a player that you would take for that right-hand side to build and develop? Or at his best years, and it sounds weird saying that at age 23, beyond him, or a Newcastle beyond him as a club? I just wanted to get your opinion on that and people in the chat. I've got my own opinion on it, but I wanted to get yours on this just as a separate talking point.
Well, put it this way, right? If you look at Jamal Lewis, who we've already talked about tonight, he went out on loan, right? We paid quite a bit for him, and you probably look more on potential, that one, don't you? And obviously it hasn't worked out for whatever reason, and he's been moved on. So what you look at there is you think if it's going to be between 4 and 8 million for Callum Hudson-Odoi, you think, and obviously you talk about FFP, and you think about as long as you can get that player back that you had when he was like on fire, when we were talking like, he was on the radar for a lot of clubs around Europe and stuff like that.
Did you think bid like 50 million for him or something at one point?
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Yeah, so you think, is it worth taking a snip on that and then possibly that if it, say for example, you could get him involved for a year, see what Eddie can get out of him on the training pitch, and then obviously if he comes back that world beater again, you think it's probably one of the best Premier League transfers of all time at that price. What you could also do is and this is where obviously you could get a little bit controversial, especially after the way that the Alan Saint-Maximin deal's just been done over the last few days. You could have him on the books for 12 months, see how he goes, and then you could offload him to Saudi. Or you could load him out to Saudi, or load him out to any parent club we might have with this umbrella keeps getting bigger. Do you know what I mean? So for that sort of price, I would say it's a risk worth taking. If it's rumored between 4 to 8 million for him, just depends on what his wages are, though. I think that's the problem. His wages are going to be high.
Yeah, someone put that in the chat. I don't know what he's on, but and this is maybe a question for you, Daz, you and Chris to answer. His wages might be high, but would he have to? Surely he's going to have to supplement that and negotiate that if he's going to move on from Chelsea. I don't know.
I was thinking the same thing when I saw this. I said, yeah, Eddie Howe could do wonders with him for the price as well. But I think they already have a plan up their sleeve as it is. So and maybe he wants to stay in London with Fulham. But interesting. It is interesting to see how it plays out with Hudson-Odoi.
No,
Chris, I'll let you go.
I don't believe that for a second. He ain't on 250 grand a week.
No way.
I don't know. He's on massive wages.
I think he's on a high wage.
No.
Yeah, he's on massive wages because this was the period, wasn't it, where Chelsea were desperate to keep hold of him and buy him. We're going to get him on a free, and then Chelsea got him to agree. Bit like Mbappe with PSG, where he kind of had the backs to the wall, and they agreed a massive wage. And I suppose to answer your question, Pete, this is my problem. For me, the two key parts are the wages, whether he'd be willing to fall into our fall into our bracket that we deal in terms of, I think Bruno's on the most at 140, something like that. It's whether or not he'd be willing to accept anywhere between 120, maybe 100, 120, something like that. And also, I just question the desire. I was going to say attitude, but that's probably the wrong thing to say. I'd say the desire. That would be my issue around how keen is he to really get his footballing career back on track. Very talented lad, clearly. But I just question whether the desire is there. And if it's not, you've got a very, very expensive player who could end up disrupting.
Chris, what you could do is if what Chris Miller's saying here is he's on 180k a week, that's verified on Capology, right? And you talk about the desire. Then what you do is, because he's been off the radar pretty much for the last 2 seasons or so, you turn around and you put him on like a, not necessarily a pay as you play, so like a basic rate, and you let him come in and have a lot more incentivized on his, say, if you load him for a year, or even if you did buy him for 48 million or whatever, and then what happens is his wages are on a sliding scale. So if it once hit, like how we have your add-on sort of thing with any deal and your bonuses and stuff, his basic weekly wage will increase if he hits certain gate posts all the way through the season. So if he wants to get on close to being a top earner at the club, he has to show that he still has it. He wants it still. But that's what I think anyway. But sorry.
I was going to say that's what a lot of our players. If you go back to one of the Trippier interviews, he actually says that. He says a lot of our players are not on massive amounts of money, but they're incentivized. So it's based on your performance. So your wage can go up based on whether you play, how you perform, whether the team wins. That's what they've done. So that's why we've kept our wage below, and based on us playing well, everyone's wage goes up because they'll get additionals into that. So there's probably the likes of Trippier and Bruno, maybe even Tonali next year will earn 200 grand a week, but that's if we win matches. Hold up.
Breaking news, and it's we have someone to bring on and join us now. Shout out to Nags in the Irish Mags chat, because he's a massive fan of this guy. It's the one and only, like I said, Mr. Sean Casey. Welcome, Sean.
How are we, lads?
Good. Even Sean.
All good, Sean.
Been a while, hasn't it?
It has.
How are you getting on? All good?
All good, Johnny.
All good.
Where do we go with this? What do you want to talk about?
You tell us. We follow your lead. Where do you want to go? Lead us into a path. This is a make it up as you go along show, as you found out through the years.
I tell you what, I'll throw something out to you. In the transfer window, in your opinion, where are we going next? So we've got Tonali through the door. We've got Harvey Barnes through the door. A lot of fans are going, we've just talked about it. You've seen a couple of them, players that have moved on that we were apparently linked with. A lot of fans are going, where are we going next? In your opinion, where do we go?
I'd say you're talking Tino Livramento next, and then it'd be a right centre back. I think they really want to shore up the defence, and that's what they're going to push for next. You would have seen there that Max Aarons is after signing for Southampton over the last hour there. So that's going to speed things up. They've already signed a left back. They've got Ryan Manning. I know they've got a right back in Max Aarons. He's coming there to play, So I'd be surprised if Tino Livramento doesn't come through. A lot of Southampton accounts yesterday was saying that he felt his knee twice in the first half and he went off injured and stuff. And he said himself it was a lot of bollocks. But you never know. But with Livramento, everything that I'm told about him is that he's, for the club, he's on the level of Isaac and Botman, that he's under all circumstances they want to get him in. So I'd say they will push that extra bit. Maybe about a week and a half ago now, when everybody called it, well, I probably led the circus, and got a copy and paste, but that the deal was done with Livramento. The thing was that the fee was, there was no overall agreement. The player was allowed to speak to Newcastle. Everything was in place. They expected him on Monday, and I think Southampton kind of moved the goalposts a bit on fee or structure, something along the lines of that. I also heard that I can't really hang my hat on the information for now, but that the Chelsea's clause with Livramento is actually time sensitive. Whether it's on the 1st of August that it changes. I don't know. That is, a lot of the time people are just kind of filling the information vacuum, because something has happened there, because the club thought that they had the deal agreed. The players, though, speak. Everything was lined up for him to come up for his medical, like, stage 1 on the Monday and go through the process. He was expected at the training ground, and then the deal just kind of went a bit flat. They're still talking. I think it's more, I don't think the second bid was rejected as such. I think the structure of the deal was rejected. It's how you word it, but they're definitely still 100% in talks. Like, they absolutely want him in. Where do they see him? Like, Trippier will start right back. And I think you could see Livramento start as a left back, but also kind of supplement the box midfield. If you watch, I suppose, I probably overwatch football at times. If you watched Arsenal last season, if you watched Man City last season, when games became a little bit tight and stuff, what they'd do is they'd actually switch to a back three. They'd bring their full back into the midfield, and he'd be a supplement DM, and it allows everybody to push that a little bit higher. A box midfield is very hard to defend against because you're actually applying pressure between the space of where nobody wants to be. We have perfect setup for a box midfield if you bring in a Livramento. If he can step into that base of the box, say, alongside Tonali or Bruno Guimaraes, and then ahead of that you have like a Joelinton and a Willock, and then you have Isaac and, say, even an Anderson or Callum Wilson. Probably wouldn't fit 100%, but like, you're talking about players that can play multiple positions and interchange very well. Newcastle are very set up very well for that. Eddie Howe's ambidextrous mags, it's like fucking, there's a trend there, like, of players that can play off both feet, so Livramento, he fits both sides, whether it's left back, right back, playing up a little bit higher as a wing back. I know we've seen how kind of sample that back three, but I think we will start, as the season progresses, we'll probably see him kind of switch to a diamond or a box midfield in games, and a player like Livramento is key to that. And they see this as the opportunity to get one of the best English players around at the moment. And you've seen what they've done with Gordon. Got rejected in the summer by their time. Same with who else? There's been many players that they've got rejected and they've paid that extra bit. Gordon started over about 30 million. They ended up paying 42, which looks like a snip now. And I think it would be the same with Livramento. I'd be shocked if we don't see movement on it next week. But look, like, they do have a backup from just in case. But he's the one that they really want. When you talk about right centre back, then they spoke with Palace about 3-4 weeks ago. They've kind of been speaking to them throughout the summer about Joachim Andersen, but the deal is there. It's a very easy deal to do from now, in the sense of Palace are saying that they want, say, 35 million with 5 million add on. They want the total fee of 40 million, and that's what they'd accept from. So the club know what the deal is. They rate him very, very highly. The thing is, though, I'm over the last kind of week or so, I'm getting a lot of noise around that they're after a top young centre-back who they see as being one of the best centre-backs in the world in the future. Whether that's, I think one of those deals hinges on probably Lascelles going, whether it's Anderson is, or it's this top young centre-back. Look, if I was to guess, I'd probably say Tabido, I'd say from Nice. I just get the feeling that there's been a lot of kind of talks with Nice and stuff like that recently. I know the Sella Cup is coming up as well, but if I was to guess somebody, I'd probably say Tabido, because they've watched him so much and he kind of fits the profile of what they're looking at, but they're definitely looking at a top class young centre back and Joachim Andersen. How that fits in, is it hinged on Lascelles going or not? I honestly don't know which one. One of them is hinging on Lascelles going. I don't know which one. But again, from what I get, is that Andersen is the top target, but this young centre back has taken priority over the last couple of weeks.
Do you point, and this is like to all of you here, like, obviously we've been linked with Joachim Andersen for a while now, and there's been some crazy fees thrown out there for Joachim Andersen. For me, I don't think he's worth it, 40 million plus. But I don't know about you boys, Chris. I know, like, I spoke to you about this. Like, there is a distinct lack of pace in our centre back positions.
Yeah.
Like, surely, if we're looking, like, to be fair, like, I think we put the stats up on a previous show with Joachim Andersen and Shaw, and they are so similar. And it's great that they are very similar because it's like for like. But actually, do we supplement or do we kind of take away some of what Shaw gives us to allow that centre back to have that explosive pace that could recover in certain situations that we haven't? We go back to the Villa goal. We talked about it, Chris. Like, Sven Botman didn't quite get back there, and maybe he was holding back slightly because it was a friendly game. But you think, like, there's been situations where Shaw hasn't been able to recover. Do we need that explosive pace if we're going to be playing at the highest level? to supplement our centre back like grouping. I don't know what you guys think about that, but it's something that I've thought about for the last few weeks now, and I do think that's what we kind of need if we're going to widen the centre back.
I think. Sorry, lads. I like to talk a lot, so you can just say shut up if you want. For me, you know,
we will.
Try shutting me up. I tell you, it's fucking tough. Schär and Anderson, right? Stats on pit. I'm a big stat man, like, you know, like fucking, like, I've actually done a degree in statistical management as well, right? So I'm big on stats, love stats, huge place in football, right? But one thing that it doesn't point out is if you look at his Botman stats, you think, Jesus Christ, he's terrible, right? Check him up on FB, on Football Brief, whichever like that. And if you look at Schär's stats, then he stands out a mile, right? The thing about it is, Botman is the one that picks the man. He's the man marker. He goes, he gets blocks, he's aggressive. He's your defender. Schär is your football player, right? He's your football and centre back. Botman can do it as well, but the way that the role is taken, it's kind of one picks, one drops off. Schär is that loose man, right? The problem is if you take Botman out of the situation and if you have your Schär as your defender, your man marker, he's not good enough. Might be hard for some people to say, but Schär does get rash, does get too tight. If he is a man marking centre back, he struggles big time. We've seen it in the past. He's unbelievable for us last season because Sven Botman was that man marking centre back forward. Most clubs play one forward up front. Botman takes him. He covers the space. He tracks the runs. He does everything. And you're almost like your loose centre back as such is Fabian Schär. The major difference between Fabian Schär and Joachim Andersen is Andersen can do what Botman can do as well, whereas he can be the man to get touch tight and man mark a striker out of the game and also play unbelievable football. Fantastic passer of the ball, great in the air, all the same attributes as Botman. But the caveat to Schär is that he's not a good enough man marking defender. Now, I rate Fabian Schär very highly. Fantastic football player, unbelievable on the ball, you know, great awareness of space and stuff like that. Love the man, like, you know, has a mistake in him, gets too tight, gets rash, and if you put a striker in on top of him, he fucking hates it, like, you know. Joachim Andersen is the complete opposite. Fantastic man marker, very calm, never gets too tight, similar to Botman, pushes players down the channel. It's granted saying that he's not quicker than Schär, but he's very intelligent. You know, like if you watch him play and stuff like that, he never gets himself in a position where, well, it'll happen to every striker, but not very often he'll put himself into a position where he is going to have to get done by pace. He reads space very well. So with Botman and Andersen, you're actually getting an identical partnership of a right centre-back and a left centre-back who can do the exact same things. With Schär, defensively, he just doesn't have it. I'd probably take stick for that, but that's my opinion. What do you think?
No, I think it's fair. Yeah, I think it's fair. Yeah, I do agree, and we've had Graham Bailey on the show recently, Sean. And
big fan of Schär, isn't he, Graham Bailey?
Big fan of Schär, yeah. He was saying that, you know, we do need to upgrade on Schär, and I think it's interesting what you say about Andersen and Schär being very similar, because that's what the stats showed, that's what we saw. But you're right in that Andersen does feel like a more complete defender, and if he does complement Botman, that could be where, you know, the link comes in. I think the only concern for me is, like, I liked Andersen at Fulham. I thought he looked really good. And then we got to move to Palace.
That's when we missed out on him. That was when we should have bought him after his loan at Fulham, because we both said that he was a fantastic player at Fulham.
Yeah, he looked decent. And I think now I feel like his price has just gone too high. And I think, as Pete was saying before, it's about, and also what you've said, Sean, it's about looking for a player who can complement Botman, but he's also got that turn of pace. Because, I mean, imagine Fabian Schär or Andersen with pace. I mean, then you'd probably be looking at the complete centre-back then, I suppose.
Well, we got Champions League this year, but we're still looking at that stepping stone player where we can't afford to make mistakes. You know, Newcastle could go out and we could sign Antonio Silva, right? A player who they've watched, you know, numerous times, you know, very big fans of his, right? You could spend your 70 million on him, right? We are not in a position where we can play the mistakes out of him. Every centre-back at that age, you have to play the mistakes out of him. Arsene Wenger's book, like I probably digested every word Arsene Wenger's ever spoken about football. You know, I love the man, like, you know. He always says, he goes, you have to understand when you have a player on your hands that is good enough to take the stick in the media and to actually take the mistakes and think, this season he's going to cost me 10 points. Next season he's going to gain me 20. You know, I don't think Newcastle are in that position at the moment where we can go out and sign a young centre-back that is going to cost us a game now and then. You see the way fans are on social media and stuff as well, that makes it 10 times worse. You know, so we don't have that opportunity that we can go out and probably take a risk on a defender and play the mistakes out of him at this moment in time. If you buy Joachim Andersen right now, you know he's going to be an instant hit. He'll fit hand to glove, and he gets you, well, he's 27 now, he gets it to 30 without even having to think about another centre-back to replace him. So for where we are in our journey, that 40 million is nothing, you know, and that's probably the way that the club evaluate it as well. You're buying someone who's plug and play. They can go right in, they can do the business right now. And that's why the club are being very cautious about how they spend their money as well at the moment. You know, we see some targets like Frank and stuff like that move. We just don't have that surplus cash at the moment where we can go, let's bring him in and see what happens with him. You know, I just don't think we're in that position at the moment. So I think a player like Anderson, where people think, geez, you could go in, you could get another centre-back for 50 million from like Alex Diassi, you know, or someone like that. Like, you know, what's the chances of him hitting the ground running? We need players that hit the ground running. And we haven't got that wrong just yet. You know, so that's why I trust the process of, if they're going to bring in Anderson, which I think I think he is the top target for right centre-back. Whoever this young centre-back is at the moment, they're talking to as well, like, you know, but if it's one or the other, if it's dependent on Lascelles, as I said earlier, I don't know. But again, I think Joachim Andersen is a fantastic sign for where we are right now. You know, bridges the gap, brings us to that kind of, you think it's not about qualifying for Champions League again next year. It's not about winning Champions League, obviously. You know, it's about building that steady base and expanding out the squad. That's why it's key that they have to get it right again over the next 2 or 3 windows just to build that baseline. You know, because as much as I love Lascelles, he's not good enough for a top 8 Premier League team. You know, like, unfortunately, I feel sorry for him because he was undercoached. You know, he had some small things that you can train a player. Like he jockeys too much, he backs off too much, he pulls his midfield in on top of him, all these kind of things that Rafa was coaching over him, and he fell victim under Bruce. So Lascelles isn't good enough. You know, he needs to be moved on. You know, so like, we're replacing those with strong characters, like, and that's why you bring in a Joachim Andersen, captain, leader. He's been there, he understands the process, like, you know, like, they're buying leaders, and that's what you need to do. So I think kind of we might sign a few underwhelming players, but they'll come in and they'll give you a 7 or 10, and that's what you need.
Well, we've done that though.
Sure.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we've always done it. You know, so it's not going to change. Like, and I think we might get a surprise, kind of probably end of August, I'd say, where they go out and they splash big on someone. You know, like, just to throw names, or the Crabadana or something like that. Like, you know, they'll do something. I think they'll do something a bit nuts, but I think it'll happen late in the window. You know, like, it's the
you mentioned that the word KK there.
Sure, you set him up. You set him up. But no, Sean's right. Like, we did it in our first window under Howe. Dan Burn. Look at how Dan Burn looks like now to Newcastle. He's a legend at Newcastle already, and he's loved by everyone at the club. But when he was signed, everyone, including people that don't support Newcastle, were laughing at that deal. Matt Targett, although he hasn't had a great season for us, in that 6 months he was excellent for us on the back of that. Nick Pope. Nobody even reacted outside of Newcastle when Nick Pope came to Newcastle. You look at him now and what he did in the summer series. He was outstanding for us, and the reason why we had so many clean sheets. You know, we have bought those players. You could even throw in Harvey Barnes. There are people that are kind of not really, like, obviously with the people that were linked with Chiesa, Diaby, and all the rest of it. They were the priorities. They didn't see Harvey Barnes as a priority. But who's to say he can't be what Dan Burn was, what Nick Pope was this season? And he's already had a really good start, in my opinion, with the minutes that he's played. We've been doing this all the time. So in Joachim Andersen, you're quite right, and you made some great points that I'd not considered in terms of the way he defends. That actually could well supplement the defence quite well. So, you know, if that happens,
I think I actually listened to you last year, Pete. I don't know, we were talking about Trippier, and I think it was Newcastle going through that bad spell, and I think the conversation was around when Trippier gets that high up, and you have Shar that wants to be that high up, it leaves a huge gap on the right side of the pitch. You negate that risk with Joachim Andersen. You look at Liverpool's second goal, it was Shar that was caught over the shoulder, and Botman was trying to come across the cover. It's these little things, and like, because when I got told Joachim Andersen first, I said, fuck, like, and then I started digesting it and like working on it. I was kind of thinking, like, back over games I watched, and I was like, Jesus, it's actually genius, to go for him, like, like, kind of like, why haven't other clubs gone from, like, because he's a fantastic footballer and defender, where Shar is a fantastic front foot and defender, where he'll attack everything, whereas Joachim Andersen just has that little bit more savvy about him, like, yeah, so ASM gone.
Yeah, but before we get into that one, Sean, I want to go to a different topic, because something that we did touch on in I saw it in our own Irish Mags chat today. But is this man looking at schools for Matteo? I'm talking about Bruno here. What's happening with the contract extension for Bruno? There was talk. There was, and I'll use quotes. So there's doubts, but there are no doubts. I believe. This is only a matter of time. Are you hearing anything on this, Sean?
So back before the cup final, I actually kind of gave the information to a couple of people about Bruno's contract, and about where things were. And there was a journalist actually going to write a piece on it, but he was afraid to come across negative, on how he actually published the piece. So look at the situation with Bruno is that one side, I have to go. I'm joking. So with Bruno at the moment, it's not about wages. It's not about his contract, or it's not about, like, the length of the contract. It's not about a release clause. It's about his position. He doesn't want to play as a number 6. He will do it, but like, the thing about it is that we have potentially probably one of the best 8s in the Premier League in Europe, and we're playing him as a 6 against Southampton. When they started getting runners on us, that tackle was pure out of frustration. He doesn't want to be that linchpin number 6. He sees himself as a number 8. Jimmy, and I think that's what. And from what I've heard is, and being honest, I'm there's a very big account on Twitter, and if anybody kind of reads between the lines on it, I actually reached out to him about I suppose before Christmas there, and I was like, asked him for an update on it, because I kind of reading between the lines some of the stuff he said. He's actually ends up being very close mates with Bruno's agent, and everything that I'm getting from him is that the man loves the club. He'd sign a 10-year contract in the morning, but he just doesn't want to see himself as a number 6, for the simple fact of it. It's actually impacting his Brazil career as well, because like, they don't see him as a 6. They're kind of putting him into that, or they don't see him as an 8. They're putting him into the 6th position. He's fantastic in a 6 role, but he just doesn't want to be there forever. Like, you're talking Bruno could get you 15 plus goals and assists as an 8. And I personally think, look, I don't know what the rest of you think, but I'm not going to question Eddie Howe, but for me, if I had Bruno, I would not play him as a 6. I'd play him as an 8. Do you get me? And if I was Bruno, and if I was restricted as a 6, and we have a very attacking 8 now, we have a very attacking front 3 as well. And when you're a 6 in a 4-3-3, your role is very important, like, and especially when you have 2 full backs bombing on, so you almost become a third centre back. For me, I think he's wasted in that role. Not wasted, but I just don't think we're seeing the best of him. We're probably seeing, and we've all seen games where we said, Jesus, Bruno looks a bit sluggish and he's not really on it and stuff like that. That's because he's doing the Deschamps water carrying, where he's covering space, he's tracking runners and doing all this. For me, I want Bruno in the 8. I want him on the ball non-stop. I want him dictating the game. And that's what we're not seeing at the moment. And that's what his contract talks as well are kind of going around. That, not that he's demanding a position, he'll play as a 6, no problem, but he just wants to be seen more as an 8, And that's where it kind of is at the moment. I've also somebody that I suppose the club, I get a good information off. We kind of speak back and forth and stuff, and his info was that it's likely to be resolved by September. So we see where it is. There's not a big negative thing about it, and I know there's a negative spin about it, the other day and stuff like that, and there's a lot of clickbait around. But again, the club, much like the comment on the page there, is it a case that they swap roles with Tonali and Bruno, that they're interchanging a lot, and he's happy with that then, but from what I get, it's a lot about his position.
Do you think Sean
Tonali can even do this bit as well that Bruno loves to do?
Yeah. Do you think we've spoken about this in the past few weeks, about whether or not we're going to be looking for the number 6, or whether, obviously Lewis Marley's broke on the scene. He's been playing exceptionally well. when he's made an appearance. I know it's probably going to be his breakthrough season, so I doubt he'll play, lots of minutes this season. But do you think we will try and bring in a number 6 to hopefully accommodate Bruno? Do you think that, this September date for the contract extension, Pete and I spoke separately saying that we thought maybe it's because, with the new signings coming, they don't want to offer that bumper contract extension until all the new players are through the door? Or do you think that it is possibly because we're looking at a number 6?
I think, look, I know for a fact they're looking at a young 6. As in bringing somebody maybe 2021, because we have nothing really coming through, and how they integrate into the team, I don't know, but they're definitely looking at a 6. I don't think it's really dependent on players outgoing, the window's running out now. I don't know if they'll get that in. Maybe Bruno does become a stopgap in there and he interchanges with Tonali, and as the season plays out, he's happy with that. But for me, they're definitely looking at a 6, but it's of a younger profile. I don't think it's somebody be starting every game. But I just think, look, it's not. I wouldn't get any bit worried about it because he absolutely loves it at the club, But I think what we will start to see, and I can almost hang my hat in this, we will see a lot of talk as this contract drags on. We will see a lot of talk about Bruno Guimaraes to Arsenal, because Arsenal and Edu has a very good relationship with his agent, and the talks there that they're saying that they see him as a 6 and they'll see him as an 8 and they'll play him as an 8 going forward and stuff like that. So the longer it drags on, I think you'll see a lot of stuff in the media pushed about Bruno Guimaraes to Arsenal at 24 and all this kind of stuff, But again, that's just a relationship with his agent, and that's the position that they'd be willing to play him, But I think it's all in our hands, and I'd say it probably depends on what the talks are between Howe and Bruno. It's funny, like somebody was there today saying that Eddie Howe doesn't even know what's happening in the contract. How does Sean Case, And I was like, Harvey Barnes was in the hotel after meeting Eddie Howe, and he went down to the press conference. He was like, he's still a Leicester player. That's like, like what you take from that? Like, I love it. Like, geez, I'd say if it wasn't for the abuse, I probably would have packed in my account months ago, But yeah, look, I'd say for me with Bruno, it's very much around his position and how that evolves. Like, what think yourselves?
I'm shutting down that one, Sean, on Bruno to Arsenal, because he could have signed for Arsenal, and I think, what did he say? I think he said, "Yeah, fuck that." So yeah, no, it's not. I can't see him.
Let's be honest.
I get the Edu link all right, though. Yeah.
I think we're all very realistic here. That if Arsenal put the 40 million on the table, we put 40 million on the table, he'd be an Arsenal player now. And that's no disrespect to Newcastle. Just was where we were at that time. Arsenal didn't have the money to put up. They could only offer a loan. We had the cash and we won. I don't think. Look, again, he's not going to push to leave to join Arsenal or anything like that. But again, what I'm saying is that I'm not saying that he's a target or he's going to go there, but you will see a lot of negative links in the media about Bruno to Arsenal, all this kind of stuff. I wouldn't read too much into him. I think he'll sign a contract at Newcastle. It just depends on, I suppose, how his position evolves, really. What do you think about that, though? What do you think of Bruno as a 6 or Bruno as an 8? If you were Bruno himself, would you be happy playing as a 6 or would you be happy playing as an 8? Or how would you like, you're talking, he's at he's 24, 25 now, coming into the best stage of his career. He wants to be known as one of the best in the world. He wants to really become a starter for Brazil in that 8 role. If you sit back and actually put yourself in the player's shoes, I'd probably want the same. A lot of times, us as fans, we look at things as a fan rather than actually looking at it from the player, And for me,
it's a believable scenario, right? That could be something that's holding it up.
But as a fan, like I'm saying, you play what you're told, this kind of stuff, But like as the player, like I'd want to be playing as an 8 because anytime he's actually played for long periods of the game in that position, he's been unbelievable.
For me, he plays his best football as an 8.
Absolutely.
So, for example, we've all talked about and waxed lyrical about his connection with Miguel Almiron with those little 1-2s on that right hand side. That's him in an 8 position. That's not him in a 6 position. Yeah. And he plays his best football going forward. So, for example, against Brighton, the amount of times I think it was 3 or 4 times he slipped through Harvey Barnes, like telepathy pass right into his path. Great position. Unfortunate to score on a couple of occasions, but they were all playing from an 8 position. But the problem with it is that we don't have a 6, and Chris, you've alluded to it. We don't have a 6. We've talked about it before. I think we need a 6, not to play week in, week out, but there will be certain games in the Champions League, there'll be certain games in the Premier League, away from home in particular, where we need a ball breaker. I've talked about it for a year. We do need a ball breaker in that midfield, not to play week in, week out, but in certain situations to come in and just shore things up and allow us to play further forward. And for me, I think Bruno Guimaraes plays better as an 8. And one of the reasons why I think he doesn't like playing as a number 6 is his recovery runs. His recovery runs are not good. And this is not me throwing shade on Bruno Guimaraes. I would like to think he would be quite open and honest with that. His recovery runs do cost the midfield sometimes because he plays as a number 6, but he ventures forward as a number 8. And when we lose the ball, he doesn't get back quick enough into his position. And there's a gap there that then gets exploited by the opposition. I noticed it heavily for the first time when we played Arsenal at home and we lost at St. James's Park last season. I was sat in the East Stand on the halfway line and I was watching him like for that whole game. And Arsenal were fantastic that day. They deserved to win. But we had a lot of the ball and we controlled possession. And that was because he was playing really high up the pitch. But when they countered so quickly and with so much pace, he wasn't able to get back in. And if you look, against Villa, when we got overran, a lot of the talk is about Tonali and how he got beat and all the rest of it. But there's a gap in that midfield where they scored 2 of their goals from that they were able to play 2 clear passes from. And that's where Bruno should have been. And if you look at Bruno was further forward, I think on both occasions, higher further forward than Tonali was. And that is a problem because if you're going to commit yourself far forward, you need to be able to get back. And I think he knows he hasn't got that in his game, and there's nothing wrong with that. He knows he's better suited to being an 8, but I think that's part of the problem. Jordan T. Life said he just wrote that, and I think other people have noticed it as well. And I think that's why he wants to play as an 8 because there's not that expectancy that he gets back and has to be the deepest midfielder of the 3 in a 4-3-3, and he's able to then get forward and really dominate. Like he scored goals for Newcastle, but that's been in an 8 position. He hasn't really in a 6 looked like ever scoring for Newcastle, because he doesn't get forward enough because he's always having to be committed to that. And I think he wants maybe more of a free license if that's the case, that it is an issue with his positional play. So I do think a number 6 would release him and allow him the stuff that he wants to do.
Another thing as well, when people talk about the summer series and stuff like that, and you see Tonali, the way that he actually kind of went for it and below the challenge, players are actually instructed not to slide tackle because of the pitches, because they're not weather pitch, they're a hard pitch. Right. The bunks of the ball is shocking there. So he went to go for it and he kind of pulled, which happens, but like people overanalyze, like this summer series, this kind of stuff. The lads are out there, it's probably about 40 degrees, I'd say. They're training non-stop and then they're going playing matches. Kind of what I think is, you listen to what Gordon said, and he's never experienced anything like an Eddie Howe camp. In Italy, it's known that their training sessions aren't that heavy. It's a very relaxed, and it's kind of, how would you say, the training is a bit passive. Tonali's after going into a total different world, so I don't think we'll probably see the best out of him probably until after Christmas. And let's be honest with you, by the time he actually gets up to that level, understands the system, because it is so complex. Like Newcastle have tactical analysis on every single position in the pitch, so they will monitor him with a microscope, and they will get the best out of him. So when you bring in a player from Italy or anywhere else, I will not pass judgment for the first year. Let them bed in, let's see how they get on, and then judge him after the season, because it's a huge change. Never mind like his personal life, and kind of football as well, because he would never experience anything like that. So I'm saying Tonali, 24, 25, we'll see what he's like. I think he's going to be an exceptional player. But kind of getting back to the Bruno stuff, I agree with you, Pete. His recovery runs aren't, he's just not quick enough. It's plain and simple. But on the ball, if you were to ever show a young footballer of how to run with a football, I'd probably show him Bruno Guimaraes, because how he shields the ball with his shoulders and hips, it's incredible. How he can move with the ball. He glides. He's almost quicker with the ball than he is without it. So he's an excellent at carrying the ball. He just can. His recovery runs, that's the thing, and that's why he's probably not the best fit for a 6. Like, he's done an incredible job there, but I just don't see him as a 6 there a long time. If we put him as an 8, we'll get the best out of him.
And going back to what you were saying about Brazil as well, Sean, Bruno's probably looking at it from a Brazil point of view and thinking, well, if I play in the 6 for Newcastle, am I really going to displace Casemiro in that Brazil side? Probably not. So he's going to see that number 8 as his own, isn't he? I think that one's probably up for grabs. I think we've seen the likes of Fred playing there.
Put in there. You've seen a lot of players, yeah.
Yeah. So we think he can make that his own.
But just look at how Casemiro actually plays the game. So like if you look at a 6, right, and if you look at your basic stand-up positions, right, what you'll probably instruct, like if you have a 6, what you'll probably instruct him to do is say never get ahead of your full backs, right? So that's one of the key roles of a 6. And if you ever watch a game and just even pause it and draw lines to it, and, if you see even Rodri at Man City and stuff like that, you will always see that the 6 will take a position either behind the ball or behind his full backs. He's never ahead of his full backs. Guimaraes is nearly always ahead of the full backs because he naturally wants to be in that final third, closing out space, really putting high pressure on the game, So that's something as well to kind of to watch it again. Look, just watch games, like even watch back a Newcastle match and look at phases in possession and stuff like that. You see Bruno being ahead of the fullbacks a lot. You probably never see Rodri being ahead of the fullbacks, unless they really have a team under intense pressure. Like I'm talking in the early stage of the build-up, So yeah, that's the Bruno update, yeah.
Just a reminder to people that smash that like button. There was 550 in the chat area, but yeah, smash that like button. The target was 350. Oh, there we go. There it is again. But yeah, let's up that. Let's even go to 450 or even higher. So you know what to do. Hit that like button, and if you're new, hit that subscribe button as well. And hitting subscribe will allow you to get in the chat. We will get to some questions at some point as well. But maybe another one, Sean. A quick one. Are you hearing anything about attackers, as in, apart from KK that you've mentioned already, but any young attacker that may come in to the squad? Are we happy with, or we already happy with Elliot Anderson and what he's doing in the preseason games? But do you think we'll see any young South American come in, or will Chelsea go and rob them again?
I think when it comes to attackers, the plan was going into the transfer window that they'd add some left-footed balance. With ASM going, it was very much Harvey Barnes was his replacement, and it was always flagged like that. So I think Harvey Barnes' ASM thing is kind of taking in isolation, and it wasn't actually say part of the plan to fill positions in the team. So I think it's more they're probably looking for a young left-footed attacker. Who that is, I'd only be speculating, and it wouldn't be like me to speculate. But yeah, I would. It's kind of gone a bit quiet. Like everything I'm hearing is about defensive targets at the moment. But I think it's definitely something that they'll look at. You're maybe a Nico Williams or kind of somebody along those lines. That they look at. But with the way Anderson's playing and stuff like that, Anderson is at a critical stage of his development now. Where he's either playing week in, week out, and you play the mistakes of him, much like I said earlier, or you loan him out. I know a lot of people saying you can't loan him because he's too good and he'll have an impact off the bench. If you have him as an impact player off the bench for another full season, I just don't think it does anything for him. That's just my personal opinion. I think he needs to be playing week in, week out now. He's too good for a bench role. His development has been fantastic over the last year. He needs that starting spot, whether it's at Newcastle or whether it's a good loan. Like I was thinking maybe a loan to Celtic under Rodgers, free-flowing attacking football, he'd bang in goals and assists, be huge for confidence, something along the lines of that. So I think both Anderson and Miley have given him a very welcome headache. It's interesting to see kind of what actually happened with Maddison in the end. Because I know I took a bit of stick from it, and I accepted 100%. But I think it was somebody from Sky Sports put out a piece on it afterwards, like. Madison's people were looking at houses in the northeast. The player himself was convinced on it. All the chat around the club was that it was absolutely nailed on. They had a package agreed with the player, but they never actually made a bid in the end. So they made a verbal offer, but they actually never made that out no final offer. Our wages versus what Spurs were offering them, there was about 40 grand difference. But did that do it in the end? I don't know, but I don't think relationships between his people and Newcastle were great afterwards, and with Leicester as well, because Leicester kind of dragged us over the coals on it. It's funny how the fee is being reported, that when they reported on Harvey Barnes to Newcastle, they talk about deal in totality. They talk about what the whole fee is going to be over the course of the deal. You know, like there's 40 odd million, whereas there's probably around 30 mil up front with add-ons and stuff. Whereas with James Maddison, they say it's 40 million and they don't disclose the add-ons. I'm being honest with you, I think the Maddison to Spurs deal would probably cost easily north of 50 million. But for some reason, they're not reporting the full deal. You know, like when I say they blew us out of the water, it's not an excuse. They did. Like they went way over what we were offering on wages and fee, and we had the opportunity to match it. And Maddison was going to be a Newcastle player. If we went like for like 100%, Maddison would be a Newcastle player, but they stepped away from it. You know, is that a good thing for Anderson and Miley's development? I think it is, because Lewis Miley, granted he's only 17, but that kid plays like a 25-year-old just ready to hit his peak. You know, like his control of the ball, his movement, his awareness of space, how he picks a pass. You know, 6'4". Like, we have two absolute gems on our hands there. Like, and if Maddison came in, it probably would have halted their development. So I think when it comes to bringing in an attacker, I don't think they're as kind of hamstrung as they were on it, kind of starting the window. But whether it's a striker or kind of a left-footed, kind of wide of a front three, we'll see. You know, I think we are short of a striker, being honest with you, because I don't see Isaac as being an out-and-out centre forward. You know, he is absolutely way better in that half space. You know, his best time at Real Sociedad was with Alexander Slot, I think was playing as the number 9, and Isaac was playing in that loose half space there, and he absolutely ripped it up. If you watch him against Chelsea the other night, once he went into that kind of left-hand side half space, he ripped them apart. You know, and that's where he is. You don't want Isaac with his back to goal. Do you get me? So I don't know. I think there's something to look at there with Callum Wilson, and I was happy to see Hodgson go to Manchester United, a good player. You know, great potential, but they went way over the odds from. But I think that takes away one less threat when we go for Evan Ferguson. You know, I think Evan Ferguson is going to. I think I'd be surprised if they don't go all in for Evan Ferguson either next summer or the summer after. But they would go big on Evan Ferguson, and he's somebody that they are watching they're watching very closely, fulfilling that role when Wilson does go.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he gets on this year. Another question, again, going off on a different tangent, but it was something that someone flagged to us on Twitter, and it's probably a good talking point, but it's about with all the action, I guess, in Saudi Arabia and all the transfers, all the money that's being spent. How long before?
I just have to pop off there 2 seconds. Just give 2 seconds.
No worries.
You actually do this time, okay? But let's take it ourselves, lads. How long before FFP is dropped altogether? I guess. What's your thoughts on that? We did touch on it before, but what are you thinking?
I think it'll be gone in less than 3 years. I think if it carries on, if the buying of players carries on in the same trajectory as it is now, I think FFP will be gone in less than 3 years, maybe even the back end of next season. Because if Saudi Arabia continue, to buy all these players like they have been, I don't think FFP will exist in 3 years' time.
I said to you boys. I also mentioned it on Potter's channel as well. There is no way that UEFA can allow this to continue to happen without doing something. Because remember, the reason why the Alan Maximin deal was allowed to go through is that Saudi Pro League doesn't come under UEFA, so we can trade between them, and it's not an issue. Although the clubs can kick up a fuss about it, nothing really can be done as long as it's market value. And as we see, if it's 23 million, it's more than market value. But there is a hell of a lot of players that are now in the Saudi league that a lot of top clubs would have taken 110%. You look at the likes of Benzema, the likes of Kante, the likes of Mahrez, all these players would have been taken by clubs in Europe to strengthen them. And now they're all leaving. And UEFA will be looking at this in the Champions League, and not having these players available is only a bad thing. And if they allow it to happen for another 2 or 3 years, they're going to have to either relax it, FFP, and allow teams to spend more money, to allow them to have bigger wages to supplement it, or they're going to have to get rid of it completely. Now, for me, I don't care which one it is, but if those things happen, the one team in European football that benefits from that is us, because we get to spend more of what we're able to. we get to be able to spend bigger wages. We're able to spend more money. And the one thing that I've mentioned, and I said it to Potts, and I'll say it here again, is that nobody, if and when this happens, and it'll probably be more when it happens, nobody can question Newcastle United, because right up until this point, and we'll continue to do so, we've done everything by the book. We've done everything under massive scrutiny compared to any other club in European football. We've been scrutinised for everything, including the St. Maximin deal, including our sponsors. We've done everything by the book. So when they do kind of relax everything or get rid of it completely, nobody can point the finger to us, because we've followed the line and we've towed the line. But that's when we'd seriously get to work. And at that point, Daz, you need to get your KK shirt ready, because he would be one of the first we'd be bringing to you. You guarantee it. But yeah, that's my opinion on it. And I think Saudi will have that in mind, relaxing FFP to benefit Newcastle. Of course.
I think kind of the opposite. It's like the investment in China, but it's 2.0 in a sense. Like, you know, like the investment in China was they built unbelievable facilities, fantastic academies. They got the players out there, but the problem is that there was never buy-in for football in China. You know, people didn't really have an interest in playing. The thing for in Saudi at the moment is, I think we are in a moment in time now where they will spend big on the likes of Benzema's and Mahrez and these kind of players, right? They will create that attraction for Saudi football, but they will also look for an organic growth in the sense of they will want the Saudi people to play for the Saudi teams as well. So what they're doing at the moment is they're creating an interest in the game in Saudi Arabia. They're building academies, unbelievable facilities, setups and all this kind of stuff, and they're making it glamorous at the moment. But they won't continue to spend huge money on players plus 30 for a long time.
Yeah. I know Sean's just gone off here, but he's right. They will look at younger players moving forward. And you know,
Sorry, I think we kind of got cut off there, did we?
Yeah,
go for it.
But so I think this is very much a moment in time, very much like they did with China, but they never got the uptick on it. But they're creating an interest now. You're talking the population of Saudi Arabia is 30 odd million. There's a huge drive now for football there. I think it's very much like, let's make this the country's number one sport. And then for they're also looking at basketball or baseball as well to become a very big sport in Saudi Arabia.
Bruno.
Right, yeah, it's mad, isn't it? But like I think that's what we're going to see over the next 3 or 4 years. They'll buy up these players, they'll create the interest, they'll get good coaches out there, and then they'll start to bring through players. They won't sustain this investment. If anything, what Newcastle takeover has done is they've actually made FFP work. You know, in the sense of, like, you see the Juventus coming under the spotlight more, Chelsea getting fined, Man City now, and all this kind of stuff. So I think FFP will probably get more strict, if anything, and more people will fall under the hammer. They just need to look at that Manchester United dynamic, because that changes when the Glazers leave. So what the Glazers done is they actually set themselves up as 2 separate companies, and they leverage their debt. So basically what Manchester United have to do is they leverage their debt against another company, and they facilitate the debt that they owe the Premier League then by paying it every year. So they will never fall foul of FFP the way they're set up. You now cannot set up a club like that, but they can't reevaluate what Manchester United have done. So they're almost oblivious to the rules, and that's why they can spend the way they can. If Manchester United gets sold, it's cheating. It's cheating above board. If Manchester United gets sold, right, that changes everything. That changes the landscape of Manchester United. They can't float around rules anymore. They do not have this exemption that they have at the moment because how they set themselves up as a business structure, which was written into the Premier League. You know, that all changes it. So I think FFP is actually going to become probably stronger over the next 5 years, and I think you'll see that investment taper off in over the hill footballers. They'll look to start bringing through their own. They'll look for younger players to come to the league. You know, they'll show they'll show them the kind of the glamorous lifestyle and what you can have in Saudi Arabia versus what you can have in England. You know, I listened to a podcast recently, and it was a footballer that's over there at the moment, and he spoke about it. Like, he was saying that where he was living, I think, somebody referencing a footballer that he spoke to, was an agent, was on a podcast. Just say he was living in Milan or something like that, or he was living in Paris, I think it was. And he was basically saying that when I'm in Paris, he said, I go out with no jewelry on, just a phone. I have nothing expensive with me because I'm afraid of getting mugged. Very much the same in London. There's now living in Saudi Arabia, I can go out whatever I want. I can drive all my flashy cars. I never ever have to worry about being mugged or anything like that. And that's what they're showing people now. Like, you come here, you have a peaceful life. You're never going to be under threat. There's never going to be an issue. It's a different way of living, and it's kind of like people agree with, people disagree with, and stuff like that. But like, they go over there and they can live their best life. Whereas if they're in London, and if you're not into the high life, and if you have young kids and stuff like that, how many footballers have been robbed over the last 2 weeks? Even, you see it every day now. Footballers' houses being broken into, kids' family tied up and held under gunpoint and that kind of stuff. You move to Saudi Arabia, you get more money and you have peace of mind. Jimmy.
Oh, was it Donovan?
It could be that now.
Him
and his wife. Yeah.
So
they were tied up, weren't they? They were tied up.
Yeah. So I think you'll see, like, you will see a lot of players actually going there out of wanting, as in wanting a better life and an easier life for their kids, like, and I think that's what we will see to happen. I think we will see Saudi Arabia just become more appealing because it's genuinely a better place to live. London's gone to shit. Paris has gone to shit. Look at what's going on in the likes of Marseille and these kind of places. It's a very, very rough place to be, like,
Richie, I'm interested in your thoughts on FFP, because that's your domain. What's your thoughts on it being abandoned later on down the line?
It wouldn't surprise us because I think we've got to go back to our good friend Keith Patterson. When obviously there was the takeover and it wasn't put through, and the one thing that always comes back to me is it's anti-competitive. You are stopping people being able to do something that they want to be able to do. Now, I'm all for teams like spending when they reach like their own means or whatever they come through and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if your owners that come through and like we are now the richest team in the world, if our owners want to be able to put that money in, they should be able to. There was never that restriction with Roman Abramovich and the City Group when they first came in. And it's the same with a lot of other teams. You should be able to trade how you want to. Now, at the moment, Newcastle's hands are being tied from being the club that we possibly could be. So it's a good question that I would love to ask Keith, and is that anti-competitive? For me, it is, because yes, okay, it's all about your commercial, what you bring in now, and all that, but at the same time, FFP's it's in place for like City, and they've always got these sanctions that are supposedly being imposed on them. But the problem is they're being dragged over years, and stuff like that. And the problem with that is, how on earth can you, if they haven't abided by FFP 6 years ago or something, and they've won the league and they've had the FA Cup or whatever, and you look at all the earnings that they've had from the Champions League in those seasons, and what they've earned some extra sponsors that have come in because they've got Champions League ahead of time or whatever and stuff. Look, where do you address it? The sanctions going back 5-6 years, Juventus have been penalised by playing in European competition. They've been, even their case last year in Italy, 1 minute they've been deducted 15 points, then the appeal got it back again, and literally coming at the last few weeks of the season had it deducted again. So it's the problem with all these FFP. It should all be done within a season, because you can't be going back 6 years and taking things off people, and because at the end of the day, what's the good going back that far either? For me, just FFP should just be gone, full stop. In my opinion, keep it to a degree where if you look at how much a company's worth or the owners, perhaps turn around and then you look at what your average earnings have been for the last 5 years, if it's the same owners going in and stuff like that. But if you get a new owner in and they've got this wealth that's proven to be the case or whatever, then let them go out and spend it if they want to go out and spend it. I'm not saying Newcastle are going to go out and just turn around and go, right, awesome, man, Kvaratskhelia, we'll just go and buy the top player in every single. I don't think Newcastle would do that still, but I think you shouldn't be able to hinder a club's growth or be able to spend on a player that you want to. That's me just personally with FFP, and it's good that with this not just Newcastle trading. I don't understand all these other fans kicking off about Alan Saint-Maximin going to Saudi, because at the end of the day, there's other teams who have had more players going to Saudi Arabia from the clubs than what Newcastle have, and yes, it's 23 million people are still kicking off. Jesus Christ, it's not like we've sold them for 100 million, is it?
Yeah.
We've probably sold them.
Do you know what though? Like for the ASM and people on board his value in that, like he's been on the market for 30 million for the last 18 months and nobody even looked at it. So like you say, how much did Ruben Neves go for? 42?
47, something like that. Yeah.
You're talking like starts of Portugal, captain of Wolves. He probably has more goals and assists than ASM does in the Premier League. Young player, very solid injury history. I think the ASM deal is 23 million up front and whatever it is over, add-ons and stuff like that, which brings him up around the 30 million mark. So when you bring up over the 30 mil mark, it's a good deal for Newcastle.
It's just the fact that other fans are like kicking off about the fact that we're even dealing with it. Do you know what I mean? It's gone for years with people buying players from the umbrella clubs and stuff like that, and it's all of a sudden because it doesn't suit the narrative for Newcastle, because everyone in Europe's been stopped by doing it. As I said, Chelsea are having players going over there left, right, and centre. But Mane is going over to Bayern. No one's turning around and saying, "Oh, well, they got him on a free last year, paid extortion or whatever. Now they're going to get a ridiculous fee for whatever 32-year-old or whatever he is." It's just absolutely ludicrous, man. I agree that the fact that I'm not saying go out and give 60, 70, 80 million for ASM, because that's never going to happen. And I'd understand if other fans of the club, but to be able to say you can't buy a player from Saudi because they're owned by PIF, what they're going to do is, does it have to be El Atifak, who obviously Steven Gerrard's at, because they haven't got the PIF connection? Would that deal be then okay, or would they still kick off because it's transferred to Saudi? You're never going to be happy with football fans, full stop. But the issue is, if they want to buy any players from Newcastle, they could do, and they should be able to. And that's one thing for FFP. And obviously, I still don't believe if PIF want to invest as much money in Newcastle as possible, they should be able to do that, full stop. They shouldn't have their hands tied on that.
Regardless, look, people get bogged down in this information. I would say the information void. Like they can't block transfers once it's obstruction of trade. You could actually bring them to court and screw them. So a lot of people are just filling newspapers and getting clicks and getting fans riled up and stuff like that, because we react at the drop of a hat. I don't react to it anymore because I've spoken to people who've explained.
Because you're the one doing the riling most of the time. That's how you can react.
It's funny, it's like people want me to be more serious, but then they're like, he's not a journalist, don't listen to him. So what the fuck do you want me to be? I'm just going to be me. It's it's take me or leave me. You're still going to follow and check out my tweets and stuff like that. It's funny there. I just got sent on a message there from another copy and paster. I said it about Livramento. I said it earlier about I expected to see big movement on the deal next week. I expect the deal to move next week, and I just sent a screenshot there of literally minutes afterwards somebody put another thing. I expect Livramento deal to happen next week, and oh fuck's sake, the ASM stuff. I was actually I put out the tweet first that he was leaving, and on the Monday I was after getting a message about him after saying goodbye to the fans and stuff like that, and I sent it on to somebody who sent it on to someone, and it ended up being copy and pasted. It's funny, but look, again, it is what it is. So with the FFP stuff, I don't get too bogged down. They have a plan in place. We have the best people, probably the best business minds running the club at the moment. It's going to take time. Just be patient with it. We've signed Alexander Isaac for 70+ million. Botman, I don't need to list out all the players, but we are there. We're just not signing names for the sake of signing them. So when you look around at the moves that's after happening so far this transfer window, what player would you actually turn around and say, fuck, I'd really, really like him? He'd be a perfect fit for Newcastle, and I'm actually freaked he's gone to another club. I went down through the list today when I talked about realistic players. Like Sabbath's he's a nice to have, but you know, I wasn't freaked that we didn't get him. You know, Madison again would have been nice to have, but how does he fit the system? You know, like Alexis McAllister was a done deal to Liverpool at 35 million. You know, I would have absolutely loved him at the club, but there's nothing anybody could have done there. A lot of clubs made that offer, but he was all in on Liverpool. So there hasn't really been anybody move yet where I'd say, geez, we really lost the target there. I think a lot of people set their expectations on what journalists are saying, you know, and players are linking us to, and they're saying like Chiesa and all these kind of stuff, like, you know, but like just digest it a little bit, right? You're talking Chiesa, reconstructive knee surgery, broke down with the knee twice afterwards, and yet they're saying that we're going to spend 50+ million. Apply a bit of logic to it. Are they going to do that? Absolutely not. You know, they might look at him as a loan or whatever that, but it makes absolutely no sense to do that deal. And then people are saying we could have got Chiesa for the same price as Barnes, but it was never an option. You know, like, and that's where the caveat is, like, you know, and that's where people are kind of getting lost in it. So, like, Manchester United went out and they spent what best part of 200 million on Onana, Mount, and Hodgson, and I wouldn't probably be pushed on any of them for Newcastle first 11, to be honest with you. You know.
So, so we've lost Chris. Chris has to drop out. We are going to go to questions next.
Rapid fire.
Reminders. Yeah, rapid fire, and just a reminder as well, hit that like button as well, guys. Guys and girls in the chat. Well, Richie, you leading us off with the questions? Or?
Yeah, no, but first I just want to give a shout out our resident spanner, Lisa. She's not very well at the minute, so get well soon, Lisa. Let's have a look. Right, there's quite a few different. We've already covered quite a few, so I'll just read through some of the ones that that haven't been. This is obviously a good one, and obviously we've touched on it a bit. But do you think that the fact that Anderson, Lewis Miley, and to a lesser extent Alex Murphy should cause a change of priority positions? I think all of us on the panel here would probably agree that all three of them have been fantastic in pre-season so far. And has it put, you know, the targets that we're looking at, have we read away to other places as well, Sean?
I think Miley and Anderson definitely, but I think it's no surprise to the way that they have come on. Right, say Miley probably did shock him. I'd say, you know, how calm he is against Premier League opposition. But I think with Alex Murphy, I think he needs a loan. I think he needs to play football. You know, he needs to go down a division or even to League One or something like that to play with men that are playing for a mortgage and playing for the bonuses and all this kind of stuff. Like, you know, I think he needs to experience that real, you know, what it is to play for a football club kind of stuff, because as the left back there, he probably falls behind both Bourne and Target, although I think Target will probably leave. But I think Murphy for his development would need a loan, but I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if he's a starting left back or left centre back in a few years' time, you know.
I agree with that. I think he'll be.
Of course you do. He's from Galway.
Yeah, that's what he wants as well. He wants to be playing. So if he's not going to be on the bench at least, and to make it, no, he needs to move and play proper championship level. Yeah, why not? Do what Elliot Anderson did and shine.
Yeah.
Sorry, Pete.
Our good friend Johnny Greenwood from Newcastle Fans TV has put a serious question, lads. Would anyone take Harry Maguire on loan?
I thought Harry Maguire was playing for them when we for our replay.
No, let's move on for that one. That's never going to happen.
West Ham that paid 20 million, didn't they? And was
they turned it down. Yeah.
Jeez, they sent David Moyes from medical after bidding 20 million from Maguire.
To be fair, it wouldn't surprise me if it was David Sullivan. You know what he's like with some of his transfer.
They've become the new Sunderland, like, haven't they? It's like, let's get a lot of money and let's buy a lot of shit Manchester United players. You know, it's fucking crazy. Like. Anyway, what's next? Let's go.
Right, this is an interesting one. We've touched on this guy before, and I think you've mentioned him as well before, Sean. And that's Maxime Lacroix from Wolfsburg. There's a couple of people mentioned him in the chat. Obviously, we were talking to him apparently at some point. Have you heard anything about him? Obviously, we mentioned Max before, so
they've watched him extensively, but I think this season he's dropped off massively on where his actual trajectory was. You know, not great in the air. And I think they're really looking at somebody who can head a football, as basic as that sounds. And I think he falls victim of that share category of can get touch tight and not that out-and-out defender. So him and Alex Diassi, or however you want to pronounce it, I think both of them were ruled out based on their kind of 1v1 defensive abilities of having the man marker striker. Whereas I think Tibito is definitely one that's on the radar.
Okay. Ray Adair, he mentioned about Bellis Harwood from Man City. We did put the comment up before. Obviously, had a fantastic under 21 championship.
I just have to pop there 2 seconds. Ed.
Sure.
Yeah.
No worries.
I don't know if anyone else, lads, I'll ask you the question. Bellis Harwood, he was there from Man City. He was on loan at Burnley last year with Vincent Kompany, which will have been fantastic for his development. Captain of England during the European Championships as well, the 21s. Anyone take him, or do you think he needs a bit more Premier League experience before you'd be looking at him?
Yeah. Go on, Daz. Go on.
No, mine's very simple. I can't recall seeing them play, but I know I did watch Burnley last season, but I'm not sure if he's playing for them then. But yeah, look, he's coming through Man City, so he's going to be good. But will they sell to us? And it's not going to be a loan kind of situation. Yeah, but yeah, I can't really comment because I have never really seen him play.
I think he's fantastic. The problem with Man City selling to us is that what they're doing is what Chelsea do, is that they sell with a view to buy back. We are not going to want a buyback clause. It's as simple as that, and that's the big sticking point for me.
He's back.
He was outstanding in the Championship with Kompany. Obviously, having a centre back as your manager is perfect, and the next Man City captain is the perfect.
Somebody you'll probably know it from Kompany being there. You'll have seen him in the academy coming through and everything as well. Yeah.
So this is why that they got the sort of players through that they did. He was outstanding for Burnley. I'm actually shocked that they've not renewed that deal for another season. I think I genuinely think that will happen, and it will go back to Burnley. Why not? Why not give him another season in the Premier League to prove his point? Because with Stones and one or two others kicking on in terms of age, he could potentially come into Man City and be their right centre back. But would I take him at Newcastle? I would want to see him in the Premier League first. I'd want him to have a full season in the Premier League to see how he fits in the Premier League. You know, how he adjusts. Can he still perform at the same level? Before I then put my money down and try and buy him. But that's
that kind of plays. Oh, am I on mute there? Can you hear me?
No, you're all right.
Wow! I was like, they fucking muted me.
Now we can do that. Yeah, there we go. That's all the better. Go on.
For me, that actually plays well into our kind of Anderson conversation, doesn't it? You know, how Bell's about wanting to see him more in the Premier League. Whereas we probably don't have, he'd be brilliant, but we don't have that opportunity to kind of play out the mistakes, you know. And I think, and the worst thing about young English players, and I think that's where they'll ruin Levi Cowell and how they nearly ruin John Stones, is that when he starts taking risks with the football and gets caught out, they'll fucking nail him in the press, you know. And I think that's what ruins English football. It ruins the international team, is that it's like on the big stage, you know, that you make one mistake, you're going to be all over the papers, and it killed John Stones for years. You know, because he was a football centre back, but they didn't give him the opportunity to play the mistakes out of him. You know, and I think the likes of Cowell or Howard Bells will probably fall into that category as well, where they'll actually, like, the English press is actually probably the reason why a lot of young English players aren't successful, because they pin them so hard, like, you know. And I think it's, unless you get in the English press and if you get a manager and stuff like that actually understands the way that football is played now, instead of getting these dinosaurs on front of cameras, you know, and if you get a fellow with the kind of tactical notes and stuff like that actually commenting on games, you'll probably see a change in England, then, like, you know. Yeah. Next question.
Not just that, though, that you've got to remember is a forward makes a mistake, you've got a full team behind you to sort it out. If a centre back makes a mistake, it's probably going to end up at the back of the net unless the goalkeeper can do something about it. It's always going to be the case, and unfortunately, you know, I know Pete does a lot of coaching. I used to say the kids play defence. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake. You can't do anything about it. It's football. You move on. You learn from it, sort of thing. So, Lewis Payne. There's a couple of people mentioned about bringing up Lewis's commentary about Desiree Doué from Rennes. Have we heard any more about him, Sean?
Yeah, so his reps have been at the club a couple of times now, I think. You know, it's be honest with you, look, if it happens, I'll tag the person who actually gave me the information, because it's not 100% my information, I'm not going to lie. The same for the person on Twitter as well, like, you know, but very strong links, you know, and like, we've watched him extensively. We know the price. Everything is kind of in place there, but I'm just wondering, does Anderson and Miley probably change that approach? But from what I've got and what I had for the last couple of weeks is that their next two moves were Livramento and Due. But the Due side hasn't really kind of stood up yet. But I'd be shocked if we don't make a play from, or if it doesn't kind of become public knowledge soon. But absolutely one that they rate very highly, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's why they actually didn't go ahead with Franca, and they went for Due instead. The thing with the Franca deal is that they wanted a 50% sell on included in his deal, which is something that Newcastle wouldn't agree to. But I think Due is probably the reason why we didn't go for Franca.
Okay. Is obviously this name's been banded about quite a lot over the last week or so. Anything in the rumours about Newcastle fan Lewis Hall?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's very, very highly thought of. The problem is you had Nottingham Forest, who I think Forest inquired about him and it was like 18 million or something like that. Newcastle inquired and it was a not for sale unless they start at 30 million. So it's that kind of nonsense. But absolutely, they love him. Like if you were to ask, say, whoever at the club, who would they like to see their starting two full backs, probably say in the 24-25 season, they'd say Lewis Hall and Tino Livramento.
Okay, last couple of questions before we get off to the members draw. Sean, your thoughts on right wing? Is Miggy the guy this season, or is there anybody potentially lined up?
Again, look, much like I know it sounds a bit kind of, how would you say, it sounds a bit vague, but everything out of the club is smoke and mirrors at the moment, and like what I get is cryptic. So sometimes what I put out is cryptic, but that's what I'm getting. I give it as I get it, and sometimes I wind people up because that I can do it.
But Riddler is your source.
Everything that I'm being told is that they have something big lined up. That they are going to get a big household name in. And it's a deal that they've been working on for a long time. So the feeling is that if you're spending that much money on an attacker, it's going to be an attacker because you're not going to spunk that much money on a centre back. And when you look at the centre backs and full backs that we're looking at, but I think we'll spend more in the rest of the window than what we spent already.
Okay, we had a lot of talk, obviously, on Bruno's contract earlier on. So Craig Lee basically wants to ask the questions: are we physically looking for a number 6?
Yeah, we are. But I think it's a younger profile.
So it's not going to be our friend Kefren Turam, and I know Liverpool need a couple of midfielders now as well, but
it could be him. He's somebody that they've looked at. It could be like a Kefren Turam or a Kenneth Taylor at Ajax or somebody along that lines. But I think I'd love Matt Whiffer. If I could pick one, it'd be him at Feyenoord. I'm telling you, we'll revisit this in a year or so. He has absolutely everything in his locker. Turn of pace, unbelievable in the air, strong in attack, a great passer of a ball. He has everything. I'm shocked somebody hasn't gone from already, but I think they'll bring in somebody in that kind of Matt Swift or Kenneth Taylor or Kefren Turam mold of a young 6, Taylor Adams for 20 million. Jesus Christ, I do that deal every day, And also the line that we were given before was that you have to become a brand on the pitch before you become a brand off the pitch. You're signing the captain USA. You're making yourself a brand,
Yeah. Just an interesting one about, obviously, he's had a pretty decent pre-season as well. Another youngster, obviously not one that came to the academy of Harrison Ashby. Tony Beasley's mentioned. It's a real shame that looks like Harrison Ashby's going to be put on sat on loan to Swansea. Do you think this is possible? Because obviously you mentioned before, it's a bit of a kick in the teeth, but obviously with Livramento coming, he can probably cover on both flanks and obviously just give Harrison Ashby a season full of what you've mentioned before, a good, full season in a division where he's going to find out what football's really like, and
But everything I've heard about Harrison Ashby in training and all this kind of stuff is that he is meant to be phenomenal, fantastic athlete, everything, but he's never had a senior season. Never even have. I don't think he's had maybe 5 senior games. Probably never started a senior game. So to put him in at the deep end would be detrimental probably to his career because, again, I coined the phrase, play through his mistakes. He'll go to Swansea and he'll have the opportunity to play through his mistakes. And he could come back and he could displace Livramento if Livramento starting at right back, or, you never know. But we'll have that option, Again, highly talented, and I think Swansea is a fantastic move for him.
It's interesting you say that because I remember, I don't know if anybody else stayed up the other night to watch the Brighton game, but everyone was turning around saying that Matoma had him in, he's was in Ashby's back pocket for the first half. And Ashby had a fantastic. Then literally 3 minutes in the second half, Matoma skins him for the ball that was it for the Welbeck goal. So it was that commentator cursed by everybody on NUFC Twitter the other night. So it was it's still, he's still a young lad and he still learns, you know what I mean? So that for me, I think it's a good move from him. But Trippier for Prime Minister, he's put this in, and we'll use it, finish this as the last question. And it's more like, obviously, so far, obviously, what we've done in the window. He dislikes the window so far. He believes that we've been scammed for Max. He got a left winger when we had good depth there, including Gordon. We want to sign a right back when we have 4, still no creativity. So is it a disappointing window so far? Or, Sean, do you think it's, do you think it's disappointing, lads? Do you use? Or do you think there's going to be some fantastic names coming or purchases that's going to really turn that round?
I'm being honest with you. If we had finished the window with just Sandro Tonoli, I'd be buzzing. And that's being honest. Like, I just think, we're at that building stage. Like, Barnes and Tonali is fantastic, and if it's like, I do feel like Livramento will probably happen next week. Barnes, Tonali, Livramento, that's fantastic. We're not losing players. ASM is gone, and they'll add another 2. Like, again, look, it's a marathon, not a race. And like, we're not revealing our hand early. So I think if we'll end the window, say, with Anderson, Livramento, Barnes, and Tonali, you've actually brought 4 starting players into your team. Not many teams do that in a transfer window where they can actually bring in players, 4 or 5 players that can actually start in a team that finished 4th in the Premier League. That's a huge ask.
For me, it's not over yet. There's still a month to go.
I
guess so. For it's even the people that are conservative, like even like the Keith Downey was saying 5, maybe 6. They definitely said 5. Like will come in. So I can see why people are kind of going are a bit disappointed in something, but there's a long way to go, and I think it could happen.
Absolutely, yeah.
There you go. That's me done.
That's the question. Well, I'm going to bring up the spinning wheel because I'll forget it otherwise. I'm
going to jump there, lads.
Okay, we'll say goodbye to you so first, Sean.
Cheers,
pleasure.
Sean.
A pleasure as always. Talk to you later, lads.
Cheers for jumping on.
Good luck.
Sean, we'll talk to you later. Cheers to Sean for that. And as we said, we hadn't planned Sean coming on. It just happened during the show. He said he jumped on with us. But here is the spinning wheel. So it's ready to go. Best luck to everyone. Again, up for grabs is a £75 voucher for the club shop. And here we go. And if someone comes out that has already won, we're spinning it again. So just remember that. Hope you can see this now, lads. Marty NUF instead. Congratulations, Marty. You are a winner. So contact us on Twitter or contact any of us in any way, shape, or form or in the loaded account, and we will make sure you get that voucher sent out to you. So congratulations, Marty.
Congrats,
our winner
Marty.
of £75 voucher. So close this and stop sharing, and hopefully I can get back into you guys. I can. Yes. Great. Going to give a shout out to the sponsors as well, lads, while we're at it, and we'll think about anything else we want to do to wrap up the show. So shout out to H2O Bathroom Design Co., the Northeast's largest supplier of Velcro and bathroomware. The Team Valley Gateshead, over 20 years established, run by the family. Get down to the showroom on 11th Avenue, Team Valley Estate, Gateshead. And you know already the fabulous bathrooms that are on display in that showroom. So also shout out to Russ and the RadiatorShed.com and Richie in jail this time, and yeah, you know as well the fabulous radiators that Russ has going there, and yeah, he's promoting a bit more now on Twitter as well, so you might see that and give it a retweet as well. If you are in the market for radiators and you know someone that is, mention Loaded, and hopefully you'll get that Loaded discount as well via Russ on that one. So that's it for our sponsors. I'm sure we'll be back during the week with more shows. We have to line those up and get them put in the system. But Anthony, because there's loads of topics we didn't even get to tonight, lads. I had a few more things we're going to touch on, but we can bring them up in a later show. We probably ran a bit over tonight. Anthony, you guys want to say?
Yeah, we've definitely got one show next week at the least. But yeah, we'll keep you informed. What I will say is that we've had over 20 subscribers tonight. So thank you for all of you that have subscribed to the channel. And we are 90 or less than 90 away from 6K. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do and get it to 6K as soon as possible. But thank you to all for your new subscribers that have come and joined the channel tonight. I think there was one comment on there. I'll go back to it if I can. 1 second. I don't know if the comments, I can bring them up now, but yeah, there was one comment on there from a new subscriber. But just wanted to say welcome to him. I think his name was Luke. But welcome, Luke, to the channel and all the others that have subscribed tonight. But yeah, massive thanks to you and keep subscribing.
Nice one. And if you want to be like Marty and win a prize next week, become a Loaded Ultra and become a member. Hit that join button and join Loaded for $1.99 a month. That's it. See you in the next one. How'd you like that?
Drink it, like weed and tell me you like that.